I'm all for it. But if a person is not physically able to take on those tasks, then they shouldn't be pursuing that field.
That's how I feel, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have anything. I've literally taken a psychology test, and I had some like biases that were shocking to me.
Really?
Oh my. Yeah, I had some biases that I would have like bet lots of money I don't have. But one that I didn't was male versus female for sure.
Uh-huh.
But it is with that kind of idea of like, look, if we're signing up for the same job and it's a physical aspect, you got to be able to do the same goddamn thing I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mind. Like, I mean, us training gives, I think that's broadened my mind a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Not that we're all MMA fighters and things like that, but being able to train and know that, man, there's somebody out here who can keep up. That's fine.
Right.
As long as it does that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't, why do you want that job?
Right.
Why do you think you're the best to do that job?
Right.
Like, don't show up and you can't carry me. If my leg's not working.
Exactly.
You know, do I want to see Professor Logan show up?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to carry me out of burning building, I want him to be the one.
Yeah,
man.
you know?
Yeah.
But don't show, I mean, that's my thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, look, we need to have equal standards. Look, if you do the same thing, great. There are a lot of things guys can't do too.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those stigmas, like being a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Women have predominantly been nurses, and for a good reason. I think that as a whole, I think women are more compassionate than men.
That may be true.
I mean, you know, I think that between us, we're pretty compassionate people, but if you look at it as a whole,
right,
most men care more about ego, bravado, things of that sort. Women are able to set that aside more and care about, you know, things that
have more empathy.
Yeah, have more empathy. And so it suits that profession more. And I'm not saying that women should be nurses, men shouldn't be. I'm just saying if you have that compassion, then that's for you. But if you're trying to go into healthcare for the money or, you know, something else, it's not the right field for you, man.
Stripper.
Playing, yeah, go be a stripper.
That's it. That's a perfect example of a profession that you got to have the right material to sign up for.
Exactly.
You got to know what you're getting into, right?
Could you imagine a trans woman making that argument about not getting hired on as a stripper?
Oh, wow.
Fucking swinging that dick around and shit. Dick and titties, bitch.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a club.
I was ready to say
for that. You know
there's a market somewhere.
There's definitely one of those clubs, and if not, I'm sure there's private parties that will definitely sell
Look,
out. You know,
we're not gonna knock Rolo and his proclivities.
Yeah, I know, right? He was just saying how he couldn't wait to get out of the military so he could.
We know what he meant.
Switch teams.
Oh, yeah.
We know what he meant.
Oh yeah.
He's like, there's just no rights anymore for us in this military.
Craziness, man.
Yeah.
Are we on?
We're on.
Yeah, we're on.
Recording.
Oh, nice.
What up, fellas?
What up? What up?
Sperm ham.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah.
One of those days, right?
Yes, sir. No
I've been on a
training
mission,
today.
man.
Yeah, what you been doing all day, man?
This house has not been put together for months now, dude. It's been one project after another, man. I'm hoping like this last one, I'm doing these shelves with piping fixtures. I hope that's the last of it. So between that and my new green thumb operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting yourself a garden going.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
fun, man. Fun
Bevang Appleseed.
That's the new name, man.
That's that new
Yeah.
Bevang Appleseed.
How about you guys?
Man, I'm just chilling, dude.
Yeah.
Just
Chilling.
yeah. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. Just been in a shit mood. Been fucking. I don't know, man. I got a bunch of shit, like you said. Everything there's so much shit at the house right now that's out of order.
Yeah.
You know, like I just got to get projects done. You know what I mean? And
Have pool and get the house ready for your parents to come.
Yep. Now I want to now they're coming in 3 weeks or whatever. So now it's like, fuck, I got to really get the shit done in the backyard. I've got fucking piles of rocks everywhere. I got fucking half of it dug up, and it looks like shit.
Yeah.
Oh, you're building a pool?
No, not building a pool. I'm getting an area cleared for an above ground pool. We had one last summer, but we had a smaller one, and so we got the one that we're gonna use this summer is 24 feet by 12 feet. So I got to clear like obviously at least 24 feet by 12 feet worth of rock and level it out and everything else. And
That's that upgrade.
yeah, that's just a pain in the ass. So what I was thinking, I might rent a Bobcat next weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and if I do that, then I'll just get out there and fucking spend a day with the Bobcat in the backyard.
That'll help out
moving
a lot,
rock.
man.
Yeah.
Do you know how to use one of those?
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
How'd you
Yeah.
learn that?
It's country, man.
Well,
That's a country thing.
funny thing how that starts. It starts by just finding keys in the vehicles on construction sites. I don't know if you guys ever did that as a kid, but we used to do that shit all the time.
Nah, man, I grew up in the city.
Oh yeah, right. Some of those little things I guess we used to get away with. But yeah, honestly, I think the first time I ever drove, I had driven like John Deere's and shit. You know what I mean? I've definitely done that, riding lawnmowers and like smaller things. But we used to go and there'd be like, they'd be doing construction either on like the land or something, and you'd have the vehicles parked. And a lot of times they'd just leave the keys in them. You know what I mean? And then us kids would come around and start fucking with them and find the ones that we could turn on, but
flip them up and shit.
yeah, right. Try to like lift up the arms and stuff, but it's not like we fucking wreck shop or anything with them. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was how I learned how to turn on big cats.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, fun shit. But I haven't had to use anything like that in a long time. They're so simple now, though. It's basically like almost like a joystick controller, and then it's like I think it has a second controller for the like shovel arm mechanism. You know what I mean? So been thinking about that. I had somebody come out because I thought about having a pad poured, like a concrete pad poured back there, because I figured the pad would be the best surface to put the above ground pool on, and then when we didn't have the pool up, the girls could use it. We could put a basketball goal up back there. They could shoot around. We have an area we could put tables. We could just chill on it, cook, and have a spot to hang out.
Nice.
So I had a guy come out and like. Not come out. I just had like an initial quote over the phone before he came out, but he quoted me around like $4,000, and it's not bad considering that's like all the work. You know what I mean? All the hauling of the shit out. Plus, I don't have an RV gate, so they couldn't just like pull in and pour. They have to like bring one of the smaller machines back for an all-day setup and run all that.
They have to wheel it back there.
They would. So all that costs more than if they could just pull up the truck and pour. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's kind of my options are like fucking pay the money to have somebody do it, or get back there and fucking bobcat it. Not do it. It wouldn't be as nice. It's going to be just on dirt. I'll have to level it out, and it would still work. But what I see in my head compared to what I know I'd just do if I had the Bobcat and just did that shit, it's not like up to par. You know what I mean? Like I look at it and I'm like, do I really want to settle for that? And I go, it works, yeah, but like the envision that I have is like a nice setup for everybody to enjoy and not just kind of like a quick kind of pop up.
The materials alone is going to be at least $2,000, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so paying $2,000 to have them do all the work.
Yeah, the labor, the materials, all that, plus like the rock hauling, and there's plenty of that back there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that like, that's why I don't want to do all of it myself, man. I've been doing it and it's just fucking wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow full of rocks, and I'm just moving them from one spot to another. And so, and I'm just piling up rocks, and I have area that doesn't have rocks, but like, dude, I can't fucking, I've been looking around, like trying to find rock hauling places and stuff. All these places aren't doing rock hauling anymore that like used to do them.
How come?
I guess because of their schedule or time or whatever, ever since COVID's fucked everything up. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy that like yard work, labor, manual labor, stuff like that, pools, all that shit exploded since COVID started. You know what I mean? All these people are out their houses now. They're like, oh, we need to get this shit done.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of these businesses, they're just out of control busy. You know what I mean? Like pool businesses are fucking way out of control busy. And it's the same thing I've been coming across. I did have somebody come out to give me a quote on just fucking cleaning it all up and like leveling it and stuff so I could get the pool down. They didn't even fucking give me a quote. They're like, "Oh, I'll have a quote for you on Monday." And they just never fucking sent me a quote. And I was like, okay, like
Wow.
you don't want money. You know what I mean? Like I'm willing to pay somebody money. And then like I finally found this, you know what I mean? But I've got about a week to really make the decision, you know what I mean? And
That's why you're in a bad mood, man.
yeah, I'm just, and dude, it's yeah, that's part of it. Fucking still dealing with that fucking court shit with the farm back in Oklahoma. That's just about driving me crazy. Fucking money tied up, not doing anything, you know. So
No movement on that?
no.
Wow, that sucks, man.
It's
Yeah.
just it's been filed and waiting on a court date.
Yeah, well, it's so. I don't want to get into it, man. I'm gonna get all pissed off. but-
That's what we need, man. Fire
Yeah,
this shit
so
up.
so I guess like we were trying to get the ability to go out and get all the soil and the dirt off the land that it was on, but it's been tied up in the court as we're waiting for the decision to come down. So I think we put in a replevin to be able to get out there and get this shit. And we've been waiting on the decision, and the judge fucking denied the replevin. But this is what drives me crazy, is because we're dealing with a small county where the defendant's lawyer knows the judge, and they're all friends because it's like small little fucking county, right? So we're coming in and like we're trying to get our shit back, which was ours. The stuff that we put out there, everything we've done legitimately and legally, but now it's getting tied up in courts because of these people that we're dealing with. You know what I mean? And
You were about to call him the N-word, weren't you?
no, I was about to call them assholes. I was just trying to. I started thinking like maybe I shouldn't be like blasting people that we have a lawsuit against. You know, all this shit. Because I know the judge is gonna be listening to tomato cans.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
right. We got a big audience, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Word's gonna get out, man.
But no, it's just so we're dealing with that. The judge denied the replevin, so now we're like, we had to. I guess we're filing the appeal on that, and then also, this guy and his lawyer, the land got taken because they had a lien put on it, or they didn't have a lien put on it. The bank took the land back because they weren't paying on it. So now this guy and his lawyer filed a lien on the property, but they can't do that. It's like filing an illegal lien on the property, and I don't know why they would do that. So now our lawyer was like coming to have to deal with this, and she was gonna file against them for filing felony charge, false liens or whatever. So just more shit we're waiting on, you know what I mean? And everything's tied up, waiting on fucking court dates and waiting on decisions. And
Wow.
you know, we're trying to sell product, but even the product that we're moving, which actually the wax is moving really good.
Is it?
Yeah, wax is
Good.
moving really good. But all this money that we're moving with the wax is basically accounted for, and we can't really touch it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because the money off all that shit off the farm is sitting basically in an account until the judge says, okay, you guys can, you know, it's awarded X, Y, and Z. So until then, that money's just sitting there. But yet we've got the fucking court fees or the lawyer fees piling up as we're waiting on all these other decisions. But we can't pay all that because, I mean, we could, but the money that is ours that we could use, we can't touch right now. You know what I mean? So everything's just this big ball of fuck, basically, at this moment in time.
Wow.
It's all stagnant, and that's pissing me off.
That sucks.
Yeah. So that's about it, I guess, you know? And then fucking, I don't know, did I tell you guys, I think I told you, B, I don't know. Never mind. Fuck. I'm just-
Do it, man. Do it.
We'll talk about it off air.
Yeah, so, you know, Sadie ended up going over to her friend's house, the one friend I was
Oh.
telling you about.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever told you this whole so Sadie's friends with the girl, and they're, you know, the girl's cool, right? Like, she's fun when she comes over, the girls have fun, you know, Sadie will go over there and have fun, except, since everybody's fucking politically gone crazy, my daughters have gone over there a couple times, and these are the type of people that they have like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden chew toys for their dogs, and
Literally?
literally, and they don't wear the masks in public, and so that's kind of what we're dealing with. Well, my girls have gone over there a couple times, and one time they made an off comment about something about like I don't know, referring somehow or another black people, but calling them monkeys, right?
I don't see nothing wrong with
yeah,
that.
right. And so that was one thing. But then they made some other comments, about Kimberly and I, just like little offhanded comment about, oh, well, we can't take you guys there. Your parents don't want you to go there without a mask or shit like that. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I don't give a shit. But then it came down to they went over there again one time, and the monkey comment really did offend. Like when I heard that, I was like, they know that you've got black uncles, right? And they're like, no. And I was like, did you tell them that? And they're like, no, we didn't want to start anything, which I agree with, but still that rubbed me the wrong way. And I let that slide. Okay, that's just ignorance. I get it. But then they go over there again one time, and somehow or another, the mom starts asking my kids about who they like, Trump or Biden. And my kids are like, well, we like Biden better than Trump. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry for you because Trump is better. And then like later on, they're like talking about something, and somehow politics gets brought up again. And Chloe's like, well, Biden's our president, so, whatever. And then like the mom again, a couple, like right after that, is like, what? The president? Oh yeah, I know who the president is. It's Donald Trump. And it's like, why? Why the fuck is anybody wanting to talk to my kids about politics, first of all?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like why the fuck is that even an issue being brought up around kids whatsoever? You know what I mean? I've never once asked any of my kids' friends what their political beliefs are, what their parents' political beliefs are. I don't give a fuck that much. And whatever it is, that's fine. Like, it's not the fact that they support Trump even. It's the fact, like in this situation, even if it was somebody that was trying to instill like far left politics on my kids, there's no need for that. There's no time for that. I don't have time for that shit. You know what I mean? I don't have time to even want to put these types of people in my life. And it's a struggle because it's like a kid that my daughter really likes playing with. And again, whenever it's just a kid, you don't hear that. You don't see that, right? But it's the atmosphere of not being around. If they go over there, they're in an unprotected environment, in my opinion, and not necessarily where I feel like they're going to fear for something physically happening, but it's a situation where it's like, what kind of shit are my kids going to have to endure, like, language wise, or what are these other parents going to be saying to them?
Right.
That's like, I wouldn't ever do that to somebody else's kids. Where does anybody think they have the right to fucking even want to say a word to my kids about anything that they believe? You know what I mean? And then the thing that really gets me about it is because I get that feeling that they're kind of in the crowd that, kind of welcome the idea of me having to say something about it. And then where does that put me? That makes me look like the guy that they're like, oh, there you are, triggered. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm also like, what the fuck? What's your point? Like,
have you put a stop to them going over there though?
So I told Kimberly, this is another thing that I'm pissed about today. I told Kimberly, and I've told her multiple times how I feel about the situation. And again, we have to have this fucking back and forth today with whether or not they can go over there. And
what's your position about them being able to go over there?
They can't go over there. And to me, it's because, like I said, I don't think my kids should be subjected to any sort of other people talking that kind of shit about politics, about racial issues to my kids. They have no right to say whatever the fuck they want to my kids. Our camera went out.
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh shit. Maybe the memory card.
Did you empty it?
No, I fucking forgot to empty it.
Definitely.
We can we could empty it while we keep going.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, man. So I just like my stance on it was that, you know, and it was like, look, I'm gonna tell you flat out, and I want you to understand this. I am not okay with them going over there. If their daughter wants to come over here, that's fine, because I understand I'm not gonna do any of that shit. You know what I mean? If they want to play all day, they play all day. I don't know what's gonna happen if they go over there, and it's almost like my wife even is like, she agrees with me, but then she's also like, you know, please, can't Sadie just go over there, and you know, can't she just play with her friend, and you know, no politics, and I'm like, how can you guarantee that? How can you guarantee anything that's gonna happen if we're not there? You know, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just fucking, it got to me a little bit. You know what I mean?
What about talking to the parents and seeing if, hey, do you mind not talking politics and racial issues around my children?
Yeah, and see, and that's the thing where, like, you know, I've come to that kind of like, I want to say something, but I also don't want to, because I don't want them to feel like they got some sort of a win by getting under my skin, or by like me being the one to confront them over some shit. But it's also a situation where it's like my kids are the ones coming and telling me this shit. You know what I mean? It's not like I've heard them directly say, and I'm not saying that they're not doing it. I'm just saying I never directly heard that stuff. You know what I mean? So I also can't really come to them and be like, hey, I know what you're doing, because they could easily deny it. And then it makes me look, even if I'm in the right, it gives them reason in their own head to just have more conflict, or more reason to like, for some other problem to eventually rise down the road, which I don't want. You know what I mean? I don't like people enough to fucking want to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like,
I was just thinking that. I was like, man, that is a lot to think about for somebody who holds very little momentum or space in your life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Exactly, and that's the thing, because it's not like, these are people, you know, that are like third tier friends, right? You know, It's not inner circle. It's not even close to inner circle. It's people that are like acquaintances of ours, but it's mostly our kids know each other. And so that's where I have a real issue, because I don't want to fucking make it more than what it is, because I don't even give them the time of day where I consider like, oh, let's hang out, or I'm not answering their phone call. I'm not calling them. I don't give two shits. You know what I mean? And then again, same thing. Like, I know the differences in opinions. I've been around them a few times, you know, and I've seen it. I've heard it even from my kids. Like, I've got enough information I've collected to form my own opinion about it. But at the same time, I just don't know, like, I don't know if I want to like make it turn into where it sounds like a bigger thing than it, you know, than it could be, or than it is right now.
It kind of is, though. I mean, if that's the case, that's truly the case, you're kind of obligated as a parent to step in, and you know, your kids aren't at that age where they can defend themselves yet.
Yeah, exactly. And they're good about being like, well, I didn't want to say anything, and I'm like, okay, that's good. You know what I mean? But I don't know, dude. I just
yeah. Unfortunately, right now at their age, the need to hang out and play it overrides all that crap, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, man. That's another one of the things I've been kind of thinking about the last couple days, and it's just been kind of it eats at me. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing I was thinking. It's, well, I don't want to say anything, but they're putting their energy over into your world.
Yeah.
And you're spinning it in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice just to be like, you know what? Boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, here's the boundaries for my kids.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about politics, or my kids aren't coming over. I don't talk about politics at my house to your daughter. I'd appreciate that same respect.
Yeah.
And then if they have an issue with it, well, then they have an issue with it, and then
Yeah.
it makes the answer clear. At the same time, I could see your wife's point too, where it's like, look, they just want to play,
Yeah.
and it's not like the shit's working on your girls.
Yeah, exactly. They're not getting indoctrined or anything, you know what I mean? But and to Kimberly's point too, she understands that like I like to be confrontational. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so a part of it I can respect what she's saying cuz she doesn't want to see me cuz she knows, especially like with some of the certain comments, she knows that it like fucking pissed me off. You know what I mean? And she knows what
Well,
my
the
family
race
is.
stuff's
Exactly.
hard to just let slide.
Yeah, and so she knows where I stand on that. And again, we weren't there, so that to me kind of makes it a bigger deal too, because I didn't hear them say that. And to say, like, again,
Unless you think the girls are making it up, though.
yeah, and I don't think they are, you know what I mean? But I just don't know if I want to put forth that more effort to make this into something that I've got to actually bring forth. And then, like I was saying to Kim's point, like, if I start getting confrontational about it and they fucking come at me the wrong way about it, I won't be civil. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's not the right character to show either.
No.
And I don't want to blow up. I've been looking for a reason to blow up. You know what I mean? And I don't want to do that shit. I don't know, man. It's just so many things go through my mind about any of that shit now, because I think too, especially with our gym, right? Like the character and the responsibility that we have to put forth for being a good part of the gym, and it bleeds out into Surprise and the community, right? Because our gym affects and impacts a lot of people. It's got fingers in a lot of places, right? I go so many places where I'm wearing DeBoa stuff and I get asked about it, or, oh, my daughter trains there, or somebody's asking or they know about it. And it happens a lot.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff too, where it's like my moral high ground is saying like, be bigger. You know what I mean? Again, though, the appropriate action to take is I should probably at least establish those boundaries and let it be known. Don't have to go any further than that unless they start poking the bear after that, right? But dude, I mean, even right now, I'm like fucking.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, politics is politics, but when you start like crossing like racial barriers and saying stuff that, well, you're not black, but you have people in your family who are.
Yeah.
So that's like a direct assault, right? So, it could be tough.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of, I mean, again, I'm just going through all that bullshit, thinking about that. And my daughter just turned fucking 13. I got a fucking teenage daughter now.
Yeah.
And then, it's this weird kind of, that's a whole new weird thing too, like we were touching on, is, these kids, they have their own new line of thinking and their atmosphere, their attitudes towards everything. A lot of it, I give them praise, right? A lot of it, tolerance-wise, is what you would want. You know what I mean? It's some good stuff there, but there's also some things where I like just want to tell her to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like it gets to a point sometimes, but how do we teach? Like, how do we? Again, we've been talking about this kind of off camera and everything, but how do you like convey the same points or try to get the same points across? The way we were taught them is completely different. The way we grew up, the atmospheres we grew up in, completely different. We learn life lessons through actual life lessons, not through a fucking TV screen or not through a fucking smartphone. We did a book report. We actually did a book report. You know what I mean? It wasn't fucking just look it up on the internet and going doing Dewey Decimal System bullshit. It's just so many things, and I don't know how that really relates. So I just threw that in there. But point being, there's everything is just so different,
Pythagorean theorem, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, man.
I threw that in there too.
Yeah. Y equals mx plus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, bitches. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you're talking about. If that makes me dumb, then I'm dumb.
I think he threw in the formula for slope in with Pythagorean's theorem and something else.
X equals negative b plus or minus
and the
the
theory
square
of
root
relativity.
of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard though. You know, they don't relate the same way we relate. We were talking about earlier, we have a very child-centric way of living life.
Yeah.
Which was the exact opposite for us. It's very parent-centric. And I think as a result of that, we thought, oh, I didn't like any of that. That was rough.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that to my kids. But then they don't learn things they normally would.
And, you know, I try to like, Chloe and I are pretty close. You know, Sadie and I butt heads all the time, but that's also because she's like me. Her personality is more like me. I see me in her so much more than Chloe. Chloe is, she's smart, you know, she's figuring shit out on her own. And, but you know, how do I like, as a 38-year-old man, right? How do I like try to have the same understanding or agreements or find agreeing points with a 13-year-old girl who identifies with all the things that she does now?
Man.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And somewhere along there, though, you want to be a good parent, but it's also like sometimes I feel like whatever I say is lost in translation.
Yeah, there's nothing in common. And I don't know how long this sexuality thing has been going on. I didn't have to experience it with my girls, and I think that maybe it just started picking up after, I don't know, after my girls were done with high school or whatever the case. But Charles has definitely mentioned it to me before, but he's also mentioned that he's got girlfriends. So
yeah,
I'm happy with that, man. I'm happy. He did say so. The funny thing is that every single one of his girlfriends has been Mexican, and I asked, how come you've never dated a girl of any other race? And he's like, well, there's not that many Asian girls at my school, and they're kind of weird, so I don't like them much. And then all the white girls are lesbians.
He likes that mole, man. He likes that mole sauce.
Hey, get what you can get, man, I guess.
Yeah, man. I don't, I don't get it. It seems to be a case of like, all these kids, they just, they're trying to figure themselves out, right? But it's such a different just a different atmosphere, I guess, I don't know. We didn't grow up in that shit. I don't.
No. I mean, they'll say certain things that I'm like, I would have never, ever said that to a parental figure, an adult.
Yeah.
My one of my little ones the other day was like, I was like, we're gonna be late for school. She forgot something or whatever. We're gonna be late for school, so we've got to go. And she looked me right in my eye sockets and was like, I don't care.
What?
What?
I know. I heard it echoing in my head, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different day and age, right? Because I know what the response we would have got. I know the response, I should speak for myself. I know the response I would have got by uttering dangerous words like that.
Yeah, man.
It's just a new day and age. I kind of think of it this way. It can only get better. That's how I just choose to believe it. It can only get better because our generation has created this one. The one before us created us, right? And it's kind of, everybody's like kind of on a consensus, and whatever information they use to like bolster their theory, everybody's kind of on a consensus. It's gotten worse, right? I don't know if I even believe that though. Life's good.
There's undeniable benefits to the way that we were raised.
Yeah.
And I think that in order for us to instill, I'm not proposing that we raise our kids the way that we were raised, because on the receiving end of things, it felt like shit. And it's not till these days where we realize the value. And I think that there's a there's a middle ground. I'm trying this new technique out with Charles where I set the parameters. So I'll do something like, hey, I need you to get this done. And I don't care how you get it, but I want it done by X time. And just get it done. And it's working like really good. So he'll stumble through things, and it's not that I really expect things to be done at a certain time, but I want him to be able to approach me or approach whoever he needs to get those answers along the way, because I truly think that one of the things that helps a person grow the most is these failures, these stumbling blocks, to be able to pick themselves up from whatever mistakes they make. So I'm trying this thing saying, hey man, I don't care what you do, just get it done, and knowing ahead of time that I'm not proposing anything that I feel is beyond his capabilities.
Right.
And it's starting to work out. It's working out really good, man. He's starting to open up more. He's starting to ask a lot more questions. Because it's key for anywhere where you are in life to know how to ask the right questions, because nobody knows everything about everything, So I think I'm helping build these habits because my thing is with growing up, and I'm sure you guys can relate, is that our parents came at us like, it's my way. Like, you do everything I say exactly the way I say it. And then we feel constrained and we want to break out of this being controlled aspect. And I don't want that. Like, I don't want the imprint to be in the back of his mind, like, oh, my dad is a controlling figure. I would rather have it as in his mind to think that he's been in control of his own life from a really young age, even though we were the ones who put the pieces kind of in place where we wanted him to go,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if you guys ever like explored down that avenue or not.
I go back and forth. I try and do things like that, but then at the end of the day, there is some value in, you're a kid, you do it because I'm your dad,
mm-hmm.
and it teaches them like boundaries and like one of the things I think that we've lost in society is respect for certain boundaries. Like, you're pulled over by the cops. Well, what is all this talking going on?
Right.
Like, why? Yeah. Who told you that was okay? Like, who told you that was the moment that you should have 100 questions?
Right.
Like, you're in the wrong, probably. I'm saying probably. Right. And then you're the one who's gonna cop an attitude or whatnot. It's like those certain boundaries, or like you listen to teachers these days and they're like, man, these kids like talk back and they're disrespectful. And I feel like we've lost a lot of those natural boundaries. I'm telling you right now, I can't envision a world where their next stage of life tolerates it, right? You go into work, your boss asks you to do something, doesn't feel like explaining in that moment,
mm-hmm.
and then you have something to say about it. If it doesn't sound right, you may not have a job.
Right.
So I go back and forth. I see a huge value in that critical thinking aspect that you're providing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're not doing the other side either.
Right.
What I'm saying is it's that tightrope walking, because there are certain boundaries that like you just need to understand authority and how it works.
Right.
Then there's other situations where that critical thinking is integral. I think we didn't get enough critical thinking.
Yeah.
And I think as a byproduct of it, our generation, in my opinion, sees a lot of the wrong, but are unwilling to do something. Right? We see a lot of it. Whereas if we had more critical thinking, if we did more things on our own, maybe we would have been in a position to like, I see it, now I have action about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I try and do the same thing, but I find myself more just disappointed all the time with the kids, man.
I think the reason why, what is it? What generation are they? The millennials?
Yeah.
It's from the overcorrection from our generation.
Yeah.
Because we knew how sucky it felt when we got treated that way. So we never want our kids to go. But the ones who thought past that and who are now to the point where I think we're at, where we can pull the value from those shitty situations and implement it in a more productive manner. You know what I mean? Because there's those lessons like I don't necessarily promote bullying, but I don't necessarily see anything wrong with bullying. So I think that there's a place for bullies, and as a
You gotta
parent,
explain that one, man.
yeah, okay. So I don't promote my kids to become bullies, but me as a parent, I would have to prepare my kids so that if they were ever in a position where they were being bullied, they would know how to respond. And that's the place for the bully, is to put those real world perspectives in sort of a safe environment. You know what I mean? To where my kids not just gonna fold and crumble when they come across pressure. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's a place for that. So if you wipe it out, then everybody is gonna be in this fake, happy, almost utopia type of place that's not really there. And the world is going to hit them in the face when they go into the real world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't agree necessarily with putting a stop to it. The bullies are always bullies until somebody puts a stop to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a lesson for them too. There's a lot of learning aspects there that is being overlooked. I don't want things bad to happen to my kids. I don't want things bad to happen to any of our kids. You know what I mean? But bad things are going to happen to them no matter what, no matter how much you try to protect them. Better that they be prepared for those bad scenarios now than to face them as an adult and not know how to respond to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Jaden had a kind of a situation where he may have been bullied. His ball was stolen. And he thought he knew who the kid was, and it was at the gym. And I guess he was 20 years old. And I was like finding out about it and getting information. And then, I guess he could sense my disappointment. And he was like, but what was I supposed to do? He's 20 years old and Jaden's 14.
Right.
My first thought, which I'm glad I didn't do it, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this. But my first thought was to say what I would have done.
Get the heater.
No, I mean, for real, like, my first thought was I would have died over somebody trying to take my basketball. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I see us all nodding our head, right? Mm-hmm. But that's our generation. Right? That's not their generation.
Yeah.
And does that really have a place in suburban surprise? I don't know. I wanted to tell him, look, you get your basketball back by any means. And if you try and you get your ass beat, then at least you could say you tried.
Right.
But what I did say, which I don't know if it was helpful, you get caught in these times as a parent where there's no blue book, right?
Right.
I said, there comes in life where there's decisions you have to make. And that decision you make is your true character. Mm-hmm. And all I care about is that you can live with the choice you made and the character that gives you.
Right.
For that moment.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how I would have handled it. Mm-hmm. And I went and got him a new basketball. See, and then it's like, well, are we making them soft? Right? But that's my point, right? Are we making them soft?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what I want, but it's like, here I am a little disappointed. Like, you didn't try and get that ball back, but then I bought him a new ball. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's funny. We actually had the exact same thing happen with Chloe at school, where somebody stole, or maybe it was Sadie, one of them got a basketball for their birthday, and another kid stole it at school. And it was like, we knew it was her basketball. Didn't have her name on it, though. You know what I mean? But we knew it was her basketball.
Can I jump in right there? Mm-hmm. Same scenario. I said, next time you're putting your name all over these balls.
Yeah, and so that's what we started doing. Yeah. It was I said, okay, I went and got her a new one. And that's the first thing I did. I put her name like 4 different spots on it. You know what I mean? She had that where it was like some bigger kid took it and was like, no, that's my ball. And she's like, no, that's mine. I just got it. My grandpa got it for me for my birthday. And they're like, no, I brought this one with me. And she's like, oh, you know? And so she walks away sad. And it's the same thing. Like as a parent, I get pissed, right? And I'm like, well, I would have go get that ball back, you know? But I can't do that, you know? I can't walk up to some like 5th grade little kid and just snatch a ball from him. I mean, I could, but
I'm laughing because
it's a tough thing, you know? And then so same thing though. I go and buy her a new basketball and I'm like, we put the name all over it. And it's like, okay, well, next time this happens, you have to say something, you know, don't just let it go and walk away. At least, if anything, at least tell a teacher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, it hasn't happened since then, but then again, you know, scenarios are different, you know what I mean? It hasn't come up again, I guess, but yeah, it's just shit like that's tough to deal with, especially like that, like you're saying, with Jaden being a little bit older. He's a teenage boy now, you know what I mean? And you start getting into an area at his age, especially, where if he's trying to be competitive, you're going to have to show competitive spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a situation where, yeah, he's 20 years old. You might get beat up, you know, it might not even come to blows. You might just, if you stand up for yourself, the kid might respect you and be like, oh, damn, like, yeah, you're right, my bad. You know what I mean?
I don't know if kids these days have that in them.
I don't know if they do either.
There's too many kids these days that have not been punched in the mouth, man.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
Here's a story that's coming up for me from my childhood, and it directly played out. I remember one of my first older friends, his name was Will. He had a Honda Civic back when they had that like metallic blue, when that was the cool thing. But he worked. I mean, he was like, I looked up to him a lot, but he was a pretty small guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were in like the alleyway or whatever, and he was like walking by, and we were, hey, what up, Willie? You know, like, what are you about to do or whatever? He's like, I'm about to go fight Jerome. Well, Jerome, at that time, he was a junior, was the star running back of the football team.
Wow.
Big dude, strong. And I was like, what? Like, you know, I remember saying something like, you think that's a good idea? Like, you know, something along those lines, whatever my, you know, 13-year-old self would have said. And he went. I don't know why we didn't think to go watch, but we were still in the alleyway when he walked back over. Man, his face was bad.
Wow.
And I remember like, dude, Willie, why'd you do that? And he's like, some days you just got to be a man. Right is right, wrong is wrong. I live with the consequences. And he walked back to his house. That taught me a lot about, to me, that I ingrained that spirit inside. Like, you know what? That's right. You know, so fast forward to my freshman year, first day of school. One of my friends borrowed one of my hats. And by this time, Jerome's a senior. Well, I saw my friend later on. His name was Gabe. I was like, hey, Gabe, where's my hat? And he's like, oh, man, I'm sorry, man. Jerome took it. And I was like... but it's the difference in mentality, because I was seeking that out. Like, this is the first day of school. That's my hat. Mm-hmm. And I went up. I remember Jerome was talking to a bunch of people. And I went up and I was like, I felt like, you know, the cartoons tugging on the big guy's like shirt sleeve. However I did it. Jerome sort of knew me because we knew some people through each other. I was friends with his half brother too, who was a lot younger. Yeah. But anyway, I was like, hey man, you know, Gabe told me you took that hat. That's my hat. You know, I'm gonna need it back. And he kind of did one of these things of like dismissing me. Yeah. And I was like, Jerome, I don't think you understand. That's my motherfucking hat. I'm getting my hat back. You're gonna need to give it to me. And he just looked around at everybody, and everybody was like, you know, I'm 5'2", $115. He's no kidding, 6'2", 215 pounds. Yeah. You know, and he just like looked at everybody and was like, all right, man, I see you, nigga. Handed me the hat.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
You know, now that could have gone drastically different, but I was willing to take that beat down. And that is the thing that how do you teach it to our generation of, or is it not our generation of kids, and is it our stage of life kids? Right?
I don't know if it's.
I think it's more.
I think it's more generational because
you think? Cause hear me out real quick, and I want to hear your opinions. But that was my hat. I don't know when I was going to get another hat.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't.
Oh, right.
Like if somebody took my ball, that might be it.
Right,
like
right.
I might not get another ball.
Right.
So the backing behind that's my shit is a little higher, I think, than.
Well,
I
and
can
that's,
see that.
and that's like you said though too. I mean, it's condition of a product of where you're from, right? And the product of the environment that you're in. You know what I mean? Like you grew up in that kind of the environment, whereas Jaden, or even like Chloe, her basketball, whatever. It's like if they lose it, well, it's okay. Maybe my parents will get me another one. Maybe I'll go buy her another basketball. Maybe you'll go get Jaden another basketball or another hat or whatever it might be. And that is totally different, right? Than that idea of like you have to keep that because if you don't, you might not get another one. You know what I mean? Yeah, my girls don't have to worry about that shit.
Right. I at least think it's a factor to be factored in.
Yeah.
But the other piece of it is just pride. Because I remember also my 8th grade year, during PE, a kid took my ball. And I said, hey, I'm going to need that ball back. He didn't give me it back. So I beat the shit out of him. Mm-hmm. And I remember the coach pulling me in the office and like, really? Like, you can't walk away just a little bit? And I was like, he took the ball in front of everybody. To me, it was as natural as it came, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had to do it. And then the coach, which I think he was right, like, well, now you're suspended and you're going to get consequences. I think you're the dumb one. That's just stupid. I'm not going to say his name. Not that he's going to ever watch this. I don't want to put him on blast, but I still remember it. But that's just him, So I don't know. There's this fine line. But I know that was my reaction even when it wasn't it was like, this is my ball for this time period.
Yeah.
I remember like having that on the football team over a football helmet. Like me and a kid, he was a little bit bigger than me and stuff. And like, not really that intimidating, but it was a situation where it was like, I got to deal with this. But he took my helmet. Like, it's practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, you get your equipment, I loved my helmet. Like, it had the good padding in it. Like, I just happened to get the good helmet, you know what I mean?
For that day of practice?
Yeah, or like for, when they issued them out, for sure, and I just happened to get one of the ones that like fit better. It was a little newer or whatever. And so this other kid, like one day during practice, I set my helmet down to go get water. And as I'm getting water, he fucking took my helmet. You know what I mean? And I was like, God damn it. And I'm going up to him like, hey, that's my helmet. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, no, I know that's my helmet. Give me back my helmet. It's like, no, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And he just kind of starts to trot off, so I have to fucking follow him. And again, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, God, why do I have to fucking do this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to deal with this situation right now. And so finally now I'm like, hey, take the fucking helmet off. I need my helmet back. And I'm like, that's my helmet. Give it back. And so he starts to turn around and starts jawing at me, and we start going back and forth. And like, before it got to anything, one of the coaches noticed and came over and was like, what's going on? And I was like, he got my fucking helmet and I want it back. And I got it back. But, like, it's just those situations where, like, I mean, there's other times too, you get pushed by somebody that you don't necessarily want to have that engagement with, or somebody bigger than you. Maybe, like another time another friend of mine, like maybe he was in the wrong, but somebody was trying to attack them or like come at them. And I stepped in the way, like, hey, you don't even know what the fucking situation is. And then you draw all the heat onto yourself.
Right.
Now I'm getting pushed by this dude that's like 2 times my size. Again, like in that situation, I get lucky because it doesn't come to blows. But then after that, they're separating us. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I want to smoke a cigarette with him. So I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, do you have a cigarette? And he's like, what the fuck? And I was like, no, let's smoke a cigarette. And then we ended up talking, and he's like, man, you've got balls. And he was like, I was ready to beat your ass. And I was like, yeah, you probably would have too. And he was like, if at that point, it was like, he was like, if you ever get in any problems, hit me up. I got your back. You know what I mean? So it was like one of those things, but nobody likes to be in those situations, you know?
Yeah, but those things, like kind of like what B was saying, right? You have like growing up experiences that give you different looks about life that are necessary, right? Like I got called up. I don't know how quick I could tell this story. I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. It was like real world business stuff. I hired somebody from a different organization. They threatened to sue me and threatened to sue her and another one of my employees. Long story about the behind the scenes. But I was like, the attorneys called up or whatever. I heard what they had to say. And I was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to keep them on. He's like, why would you take on liability for a brand new employee? Like, just let the person go. Like, you're an attorney. You know better than this. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I hear what you're saying. That's one perspective in the world. I'm also an attorney. If you take me to court, I'm going to win and I'm going to get attorney's fees. That's going to happen. The other thing is I was a kid that would stick up for other kids that were getting bullied, even if I knew I was going to get hurt. And that's where we're at. So do whatever you need to do. Click. Haven't heard a thing. Mm-hmm. And we will not hear a thing. I'm certain of it. But again, that's like kid experiences that you can bring into real life in this present moment. The easy thing, I mean, again, it's character, right? That's how I look at it. What's my character? I could not live with myself if I backed down, right? I said as a man to another human being, you have the job. This is your job. You start on this day. And I'll be damned if somebody's going to step in and try and stop it from happening, even if it's going to create a little more hassle for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, that's the big thing. I just hope that the character that our kids are developing is the character they're going to want. Because even in your story, I get that earlier today with the parents. I'm the same way. Like, they don't know what's going on in my head, right? Like, my first thoughts are not always the best thoughts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you push too many buttons too quickly and you get ahead of me, you may not like the reaction you get. Right? So I'm understanding that about your story too. But again, without you saying it, you did say it. But would I be comfortable with the character I'd be leaving of that situation now?
Yeah.
As an adult?
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't have your different levels, you can't. I mean, it's easy to be like at level 10 and draw down. It's easier than to be at level 1 and need to get up to 10 without the life experience to do it.
For sure. Yeah, man. And that's, it's all ties back into like our kids. How do you, like, I was never, I mean, there's those standout a couple times, where somebody's bigger than you, but I was never one of those kids that was always bullied. I never had a bully that just like fucking messed with me and terrorized me. I never grew up with that. I don't even know what that experience is like. I always had a lot of friends, right? I was, I guess, fairly popular enough where I never grew up thinking like, oh, I'm a loser or I don't have friends. So I don't know what that kind of experience is, you know what I mean? And I can only say as far as like what I grew up with, what our experiences were, that's what I can kind of build off of. So same thing, it's like when my daughter says to me, being a girl in 7th grade in this society that it is today, and she's like, these girls, they bullied me at school. And I'm like, well, how'd they bully you? And she's like, I'd be walking down the hall and they'd see me and they'd start laughing because I'm dating one of their ex-boyfriends. And I'm like, fuck those bitches. Those fucking bitches ain't shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like in my head. And I'm like, that's nothing. Like, don't even fucking worry about it. But like to her, that's everything.
Right.
Because that's her experience of bullying. You know what I mean? And that's another one of those things. It's like, I have to tell her, I'm like, just don't let it bother you. Like, and for me, it's easy to say that as an adult, as going through it, and with the experiences I do have, it's easy for me to say like, that shit is nothing. But it's not easy for this girl going through it in 7th grade and just now learning herself and just now being around other kids who are now learning or figuring out how to be little assholes or little bitches, you know what I mean? And then, you know, it's again somewhere along the line, it's trying to convey my message of understanding, as well as trying to get her to understand that, like, don't let it affect you, you know. But it's not as simple as just saying don't let it affect you, because if it were that easy, then everybody'd be like, oh, you're right, okay, we're good, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I had a similar thing with Mariah, who's 6th grade. But apparently there's been like this inner feud. But basically her and another girl on the chopping block, no one's talking to him. And one girl's spreading rumors. And, you know, she was talking to me about it. And I was like, well, number one, just listen. Let this trend keep going, you know? Mm-hmm. Number two, I was like, man, I don't know how to relate to that, because all of my answers are from a male's perspective of how I would answer this situation. Mm-hmm. And neither for the good or for the bad, just women are different.
Yeah.
Right? But in my mind, I was like, wait, so people are talking trash, and one girl in particular is talking trash behind your back. In my mind, I was like, this is simple. You go find so-and-so, and you tell her next time you hear her talking trash behind your back, you're going to smack her in her goddamn mouth. Right?
Enough said, right?
But I mean, from a male's perspective, right, that might be the right answer in elementary school.
Oh yeah, right.
But from a female's perspective, like I passed that through Amanda, and she was like, oh no, that wouldn't work. It would just get worse. You know, and it's like, well, I'm glad I didn't say anything. You know?
Like 7th grade me, right? 8th grade me, whatever middle school grade me. If some other kid your age goes, your mom's a bitch. Oh yeah? Well, fuck, that's fighting, you know? Yeah. We're fighting. Like, that's a reason. Now it's like, your mom's a bitch. Oh, you got me.
Yeah, right.
Oh, darn.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah, fuck that bitch. You're right. No.
But that's the thing. Like, I guess that's
I love you, Mom. I'm joking.
Right. That's the thing I was hearing, though. It's like easier down the line to be like, oh, yeah, that doesn't apply. Like, that person doesn't know me, doesn't know my mom. Mm-hmm. I don't care what they think. But that's not a skill you grow up with. No. And, you know, as I was hearing Mariah, and I was kind of relating to your story, too, it's like, man, that's their life.
Yeah.
Like, this is sad for her. She has to wake up and go to school in this scenario.
And think about it, you know.
And think about it and figure it all out. I didn't know what to say. For me, as a parent, I've just learned, like, when I don't know, it just be that way. Like, I have no clue what to do. Sounds like a really difficult situation. I'm confident you'll figure it out, but I'm here and I will listen whenever you need me to.
Yeah, see, I didn't approach it like that, though. My first thing out of my mouth was, she was like, you know, these girls are bullying me. I go, what? You're not getting bullied. That was literally the first thing I said. And I
remember you were talking about empathy in nurses? This is why, man.
And like, right as I said it, though, I was like, ooh, like that was not what even though I may have meant it in a way, like, that's not how I should have said it. Like, I should have been more like, oh, well, explain to me how you're getting bullied. And then I could have been like, oh, that's not that big of a deal, or attacked it, however. But instead, yeah, my first reaction was like, what?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't happen to the Perhams. You know what I mean? Not in this house. No, I didn't say that, but you know what I mean?
No, you thought it, right?
I know. I was like, hell no. We will not stand for this, you know, but I did. I was like, you don't get bullied. And then I had to go back to, like you said, I'm like, wait a minute. Her experience is her experience. I can't say that. Even though what I've seen, and I see like her friends and how they react, and you know, I know her character. I know what she's like, right? To me, it's like one of those things. What, you're a good kid. Why is anybody bullying? You're not an asshole. You don't do things.
That could be the reason why, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, oh, and it was because, you know, oh, her ex-boyfriend likes you. The kid that used to like her likes you now. And then you're like, oh, well, that's just kids being kids, you know? Like, that's
called haters.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I tell her.
Good lesson to learn.
I'm like, and that's what I try to explain to her now, is like, you got to think, a lot of times these girls, they're going to hate and not just girls, but any kids, right? They're hating. A lot of it though is because of jealousy, or because it's like they're mad that you've got whatever you've got and they don't have it. Like, you can't let that affect you. You can't let that bring you down to their level, right? And what really gets them even worse, the way you win that fight is you go about your business. You don't fucking worry about them. And as you keep progressing and they don't, 5 years from now or whatever that length case scenario is, when you're here and they're here, that speaks volumes in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're letting emotions control what they're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
Less than what they would want their character to be,
Right.
even though they don't know that language. But yeah, I kind of thought that same thing with Mariah too. I did point out, because there was an incident that happened with a different friend 6 months to a year ago, and I didn't like it at all. They were basically making fun of a girl and kind of ganged up, and I thought it was bullying. And I remember at that point in time saying, you know, here's why it's important. And I use the word character a lot, because to me, that is, as an adult, when I learned what character was, I could start molding myself to what I wanted rather than just what I was made to be.
Yeah.
But I remember telling her, like, your friends are displaying what their character is. And if you think that you could be friends with these people and not be on the receiving end of that at some point in time, you're wrong. You will be.
Mm-hmm.
So now is one of these times. I'm not saying you're going to do it. I know how hard it is to go find new friends. I know all that stuff. But I want you to remember this. Because the right thing to do right now when you find out that kind of character is making a decision. Is that who you want your friends to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then with this conversation, it wasn't a I told you so. It was a reminder of, hey, do you remember me saying that?
Mm-hmm.
You're in another decision tree in your life where you get to decide, do you still want these types of friends with this type of character? Or do you want to try and go make some other friends? You know? Anyway, to me, it's going to your point though, B. I look at, like, I don't have to have the right decisions. It's not always to make it easiest for them.
Mm-hmm.
They need to go through their own scrapes and cuts and get all that stuff. But I think, like you said, I guess that's a way I guess I do agree. Because at first I was like, I don't know if I agree totally. But I guess that's essentially what I did, is kind of guided in ways, but didn't make the choice.
Right. Yeah, I ultimately came up to that because I remember thinking to myself as a kid, like, this shit sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any room to breathe, and it impacts you even more as a kid when you can't follow through with what's being demanded on you. You know what I mean? So it already sucks that you have to do this, and it sucks even more when you can't accomplish it. And that's one of the things that I always took out of my youth, is that when I have my kids, I'm not going to put them in this situation. You know what I mean? But now, being older and realizing that there was valuable lessons to be learned in those situations, you try to, we're all just trying to do the best that we can anyways.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I don't know, like, I didn't have those situations with my girls. Like, and me, myself, growing up, I was kind of in Chris's boat where I wasn't necessarily picked on or bullied. And I think a lot of that, especially in the younger years, elementary to middle school, is I never painted myself as an easy target, you know? But I don't necessarily say I helped out people who needed the help as you did, but I didn't shy from it either. If I had a friend that needed help, I would help out, but I didn't, if bullies recognize easy prey and they choose to go after the easier prey. I don't know if that's the same situation with my kids, but it wasn't, I'm sure it was around, and maybe it was the girl's mentality, just to not to worry about it, just to put it aside. And then Charles, he's right about at the cuffs of being able to take care of himself. You know what I mean? By next year, I don't have to worry about stepping in at all, ever. You know, whoever gives him a hard time, in high school at any level is going to have a hard time with him. And to me, that's good enough because he doesn't have to win a fight if he ever gets into it. The more important lesson is that whoever picks on him knows that he's not an easy target. And I can say that because I know my son, and he's not. I would find it really hard to believe that he was the one attacking somebody else.
For sure.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that says about his character, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was one time, I was at Thui's house waiting for him to come back because at that time, him, Alora, and Vera went to school together, and he was pretty much in tears, right? And Vera was crying. Vera was crying, and he was crying. And the story came out that some kid was pushing around Vera, and so she, she felt bad and like she started crying after that. And then I was like, well, why are you crying though? And he was like, I'm just so angry because I wasn't there in time to go to help her, So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, I think his mind is in the right place. I think he has to work on his emotions, but I think that his heart is in the right place.
Yeah, it sounds like the right blend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know I dropped Jaden and the girls off to their mom's house, and there was this dog on the loose. Like they were walking across the field, and this dog was on loose, started running at them. In their minds, it was a terrorizing dog. The dog's wagging its tail or whatever, right? But in their minds,
right.
And I remember Jaden turned around and took off and left his sisters. I was like, what does that mean?
See ya.
I know. But I haven't been fortunate to see, like, that's a good thing to see where you're like, okay, that's his spirit coming out. You have that spirit, you're not going to be an easy target.
Right.
I know one of the messages I got first in life was, because my dad's very small, but a tough dude. He's like, you're probably going to be small like me. So you've got to be tough. And you're not going to win every fight because you're not going to be able to win every fight. Mm-hmm. But you're able to hurt somebody in every fight. And if you do that, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had that as a starting point in my mind because it's true. Bullies aren't going to mess around with the guy that's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's hard, though, to transition our generation to this generation because I admit I'm part of the problem. Sometimes it's so hard to get them to do it the right way. I just do it because I don't have time for it. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
But I'm just being truthful and honest.
Yeah, well, we're out of touch with what it's like to be in school these days.
For sure. I mean?
Like, we wouldn't have any idea. Like, our tactics would not be effective at all in this day and age.
Well, this was one random thing. Like, this was a year and a half or so ago. Jaden was playing basketball, and his friend was playing. I was playing too. And Jaden had a horrible game or whatever. He was getting down on himself and started to show some emotion about it. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I was like, holy shit. I would never have done that in front of a friend. Like, right. You save that for the bathroom when you're looking in the mirror and nobody can see. You know what I mean? But what caught me the most was, like, his friend had empathy for him. Mm. And was Jaden was being vulnerable and his friend was being vulnerable in ways that I haven't seen. I think we're all an exception, right?
Yeah.
Like, think of your other friends or other acquaintances where it's like they were vulnerable in ways that I couldn't have imagined as an adult, let alone a child.
Yeah.
So it's not that we have the right way. It's not going the way I think it should, or it doesn't look how I think it should. So that can't be right. But who knows? Because in the end, will empathy get us further, or will being able to stand up and fight get us further, right? Difference in politics.
Yep.
Well, I know in like that scenario, right, if it was like our generation growing up, you would probably, chances are somebody would be like, all right, you two, stop acting gay. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like,
oh man, I mean,
imagine the shit. You know what I mean? Like,
if I know my reaction, if I was not playing well, I know exactly. It would not be to show emotion. It would be
Mm-hmm.
to get out there and get after it the next day so it didn't happen again. One. The other thing is if one of my, I remember this is the first time where I had a friend catch feelings, like real feelings, like first time being in love.
Mm.
And he came to my house, like, I don't know, he found out she was cheating or she broke up, something like that. And we went and sat down and he was crying. And I'm kind of embarrassed of it now, but it was so foreign to me back then. Like he was crying and whimpering and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, you can't act like that. And you're definitely, no, I'm being dead serious. I'm being dead serious. This is my reaction to my friend in his time of need. You definitely can't act like that if in my house. You're going to need to get up out of here.
Wow. Yeah, I think that
You gotta go cry somewhere else, homie. Sorry.
You know what I'm saying? But,
right.
but to his credit, let's fast forward until I caught feelings, right? So I'm not sitting here, I'm not trying to make myself into something. I'm just telling you, I didn't understand it at that moment. And that was my literal reaction to him.
You can't relate until you can relate. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, what the fuck is that? Ah, I see.
But we were like late in high school, man, like juniors or seniors or something.
Mm-hmm.
So to see at that time, I think they were in 7th grade, to see his friend extend that empathy.
Yeah.
And them to be there for each other, I got to admit, that was kind of cool, man. I would like to have known what it was like to be in a supportive environment like that.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that the millennial generation did get right, is to embrace emotion, to embrace empathy. You know, I think that the lack of empathy in our generation caused us a lot of harm. And now being more mature minded, we see that the benefits of being empathetic. You know, we see the benefits of being able to express your emotions rather than bottle everything up. You know, there's a lot of harm that can be done there if you bottle everything up, man.
Or respond in anger
Mm-hmm.
and violence.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the first thing I liked to, dude, I so much anger issues, you know what I mean? That now obviously it's different. It's a lot easier to control and shit. But man, like growing up though, it was like my first reaction to everything was always explosive. You know what I mean? It was like I mean even like in marriage, the early years of marriage, stuff like that. Like where I'm at now is, I mean, 1,000 times better than where I was before at some point, but even like talking about being kids, like there were times that I would have been the bully more than I ever got bullied. You know what I mean? I've done that shit. I've, named the bad shit at some point. I've stolen shit. You get into situations where I grew up doing shit that is not good shit. Looking back at it, now that's not me, right? Like I haven't stolen anything from a store since I was like 13, and that was a fucking $10 necklace.
I thought you were about to say like 31.
Yeah.
I was like, good for you, bro.
Like 13 days ago. And, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's those things. It's like over time, as you figure your own stuff out, like that's where the character really comes in, right? The character that I have now, like kind of like you're saying, being able to mold your own character or mold the person that you are, to be able to figure that out, not say that I'm destined to be this, right? And just fit into that void or that role of like, this is what I'm predetermined. I started this way, I'm going to end this way.
Right.
It should never be that. You should always have room for improvement and to grow, but doing it is a different thing, And so that's where at this point now, yeah, man, like to come from like, my first reaction has always been explosive, reaction somehow, whether it's with emotion or whether it's like yelling or, throwing something, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's always been there. To be able to curb it, it's taken a lot of fucking psychedelics and a lot of fucking weed, you know what I mean? But it is those things though, that it's over time. It's just getting to know yourself better and being able to understand your own vulnerabilities though, right? Like,
yeah,
it's hard to, if you hold on to shit and you compensate, like we all want to be hard, like I don't want to be that guy that shows emotion. I don't want to, you know, like I say, like I hate people enough where I don't want to be around them. Yeah, part of that is true. Part of it is, you know, that's a little sarcastic, right? Because obviously where I'm at now is somewhere that I don't want to be that closed off person. You know what I mean? But over time, if you don't grow and if you don't figure out how to deal with your own shit or bring it forth and confront it some way, you never can get past it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a way, you're always going to be stuck as a child or an adolescent or a teenager somewhere in your actions, in your moods, in your mind. And that's something that's one of those things that's confronting it and getting comfortable with knowing that like you have vulnerabilities. It's never easy to admit it, right? Never easy to fucking confront it. But when you do and you have to or you're forced to, you don't want to be forced to, right? You would rather do it willingly because it's easier to accept it that way.
On your own terms.
Yeah, on your own terms.
Right.
But if you're maturing and you're growing, you should at some point be able to like figure that stuff out. You know what I mean? And I was never somebody like, I think, I don't know how you guys feel about like counseling and stuff.
Done a ton of it, man.
And see, to me, I always thought like it never made sense to me.
Yeah.
Like it just never made sense to me. Like, why would I pay somebody to listen to my problems? That's
Have you
how
tried it though?
No,
No?
never once. And I had this issue when I was a teenager where my mom wanted me to go to counseling for family stuff. Cause like I was saying, I had fucking some major rage issues and emotional issues. So we went to this counselor and I was like, you know, he's trying to be all nice to me. And I was like, you don't even know me. I was like, why are you being this nice to me? You're not trying to, you're like agreeing and understanding everything I'm saying, but you don't know me. You're just kind of like jotting stuff down over there. What are you writing down? You know, oh, I can't see that, right? And I'm like, oh, and you're not my friend. And my mom was like, Chris. And I was like, Mom, you're paying him for him to listen to my problems. He's not my friend. Like, I'm not going to tell him anything that I think he should know about me because you're paying him and he's not my friend. Mm-hmm. And so that's literally how I approached it. And I've always kind of looked at it that way. I'm not saying it doesn't work for people. You know what I mean? That's just, I've always had that approach with it. So to me, counseling wasn't ever something that like I could go through. You know what I mean? I just never like was able to rationalize the idea behind it. And I still, the same thing. I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's easier for me to understand it and sort it out on my own than to go and pay somebody to like ask me the questions to figure it out. Because if they can ask the questions to get me to figure it out, then I should be able to do that on my own.
I think with counseling, my take on it is it's effective if you allow it to be effective.
Right.
So you have to be open to the idea that it's going to help you out. And if you're completely closed off to that, then counseling is not going to help you out. Mm-hmm. Or like, say, rubber guard, right? Like if you're not open to the idea that it's a great form of a guard, it's not going to work for you. But if you, and then say Eddie Bravo is your counselor, right? The counselor is there because they have experience in getting you to a certain point. Not that they have the answers, but you as the one being counseled have to be open enough to accept it. So like even if Eddie Bravo were to teach you rubber guard and you didn't believe in it and you wouldn't go through the steps that he was trying to instruct you on, then of course it wouldn't be effective. But if you were open-minded to it, right, and if you followed his direction step by step, you would be probably pretty proficient at playing the rubber guard.
I don't buy it.
That's just my take. That's just my take on it. But it all starts with you as the person getting coached or getting counseled. You know,
I know for me, I thought very similar to you very much so in the beginning, especially because throughout life there were obstacles, and I was always able to figure out how to get through them. But there did come a point in my life where I recognized a severe deficit in my thinking or deficient thinking that for whatever reason I had the wherewithal to know that's going to be a problem. And I don't think I can control that. It's not a problem today, but 5 years, 10 years. I mean, really the defining factor for me was you can only get in so, you can only get in so much trouble when you're broke. Right? But then it was like I started getting a little bit afraid where it was like all these things that in my mind are good ideas, I can make happen tonight. You know? Mm-hmm. So I had a problem and then my mind went there as a solution. For whatever reason, I was able to catch it from the problem slightly in the moment to the solution as, that doesn't make sense. How's that going to make this better? Like, but it was hard to hold on to. I mean, it was so much of a draw to it where I was like, that's what I'm going to do. You know, anyway, but the bottom line is somehow I was granted that wisdom through life, God, whatever you want to call it in that moment. So I did set out to change some things about me. That little crevice, because I was open to it and I did not want, I did not want to react to life violently anymore. Right? I did not want to rely on like substances or dopamine hits, whatever form they come. Whether it's work or recognition or whatever it is. So for me, that time period, I was very open to it because somehow I knew my worst fear has always been dying by myself. It's just, in fact, to add on to it, even a worse fear for me was having materialistic stuff and dying by myself. I don't know why. I don't know.
You got this big house, this fancy car, all that.
Compound things.
I don't know where it came from. I think I have some ideas.
Well, I'm sorry. Part of it's like a little vanity, right? Like as far as you worked hard to get this stuff, if you can afford it, you get it. You know what I mean? You can acquire all this stuff, but loneliness is something that like you can't buy. I mean, to an extent, you can't buy not being lonely, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, a huge part of it was my dad. I watched as I grew up put his happiness in things that as a young person I could see don't bring happiness, right? And I've seen him as a young person. I could see that he missed out, and he missed out on this, and he missed out on that, and he's continuing to miss out. Like, I think my opinion with him is he's too far gone, you know? So that was some of it. I don't know where the materialistics, I guess I was raised in a way, like, I'm the only guy I'm definitely not the only guy. I'm like trying to make it bigger than it is. But most people who go through law school, get their law degree, become a lawyer, set out to make money. Mm-hmm. I did not do that. I did the exact opposite of that. I did what I wanted to do, which was help people that I thought needed help, however, whatever form it was. So maybe I was set behind the 8 ball as far as materialistic things to maybe I don't believe the way I did about them before, whereas, that's evil. I don't believe that anymore. Anyway, whatever the case is, you combine those two things, that literally is my worst fear. Having stuff, but nobody. That's where I saw the decisions, the way my brain thought and the things I was going to do. That's where it led in my mind. So I was really open to the counseling, and I'm glad I did it because for me, it worked. I could say that fundamentally I'm a different person than I was. But I do agree it's not for everybody. And I don't think it's not for everybody because you'll go some places and they'll be like, well, it's on the person. Well, not necessarily. Some things work for some people and other things don't work for other people. Right? I mean, you could get the same thing if you have a good group of friends who are going to force you to confront your fallacies about life, or whatnot. But I know for me, it really helped, and I'm glad I did it. I agree, though. I don't think it's for everybody. I know It was hard for me to do, though. That much I do know. And it took a few years of it to get it right.
Yeah. Somewhere along there, like, I agree too that it's willingness to accept it, right? But see, that's when, like,
Well, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because it just hit me. For me, it was the willingness to say, I can't fix this thing.
Right.
That was what I knew. I did not have it in my power. I'm going to lose this battle if I try and do it by myself. And the consequence in my mind was too great.
Right. Yeah, and see, that's somewhere along the line where I just started, like, I started going about it kind of a different, where, like, every day would be a goal. You know, like, every day is a goal of, like, it's a reset, right? It's either 1 or 0. 1 is I got a point that day. And the point is I didn't yell, I didn't get mad. There wasn't an argument, you know, whatever it is, and that, boom, I won that day. The other days where it's like, how many days of that can I go in a row? How many points in a row, consecutive points, can I get? And then there's that day where fucking, and I'm like, fuck, 0. You know, cross it out.
Big fat 0.
Now we got to reset. And then I started analyzing what was it at that point why did I react that way? It always comes back to the same thing. I have anger issues and I have a short fuse. And sometimes my tongue is a little quicker than my mind. You know what I mean? And that's a big problem that I have. And I don't mind acknowledging it because it's true. But that's what makes me me. I've just started to figure out how to, like, catch myself before that moment. You know what I mean? Like, right when I'm ready to say that one thing and I know it's there, like, I got to say, whoa, hold on. You know what I mean? Just take that breath before I say it. And then it gives me time to, like, okay, that's a little too over the top or a little too sarcastic, right? But like you're saying, I didn't go to counseling for that. That was something that I struggled with for a lot longer because I probably didn't acknowledge, or I didn't go to seek somebody to help me with that, which I still think is bullshit. But,
no offense taken.
No offense. But you know, but in my kind of my thinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just, like, it took me a lot longer to get to that point, and I did it in a different way. Again, not to say your way isn't right or wrong, or my way is right, or vice versa. You know, it is what works for the certain individual, right?
Exactly.
I just did. I'm fucking hard headed, you know, and I just kind of do things a little bit differently sometimes, and that's one of those things. Like, it took me longer to get there, but I also feel like I got there, you know, and that's where the part of me says, like, well, I got to where I'm at now without that help, right?
Yeah.
And so part of me is like, I figured it out. Anybody could fucking figure it out, you know, which may be true. But again, to your point, not everybody has the mental fortitude or the ability to do that. Sometimes, I mean, mental fragility. I mean, there's people that have mental health issues, right? You know, schizophrenics or psychotics or whatever it might be. And we'll never experience that. For us, we can look at them and be like, those people are fucking crazy. You know what I mean? And it's easy for us to say that, but we don't know what it's actually like living with that every day, and the struggle that those people go through to try to be normal, when it's like, I look at it and be like, just be fucking normal. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of different factors. I mean, what is fact, though? I mean, you'll find it out, like, politics, religion, anything that's a hot button topic. Your point of view may not be correct, right? But what is fact is there are a lot of ways to get to a certain point. And people have done it in all kinds of different ways. Some people will be like, I started yoga, it changed my life. I started jujitsu, it changed my life. You know, and then others are like, those things didn't work for shit for me.
Right.
You know, so I am definitely not a believer in one size fits all. I felt like, you know, I think it's like actually like almost maybe like we're on extremes, right? I'm on this extreme, you're on that extreme. Beat's coming somewhere in the middle. But the big part is like people just being willing to do what will work for them.
Right.
Like you held yourself accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I didn't feel like I could do it, so I went for help, and I'm glad I did because it got me to the same spot. You
Right.
know, the chances of those old character traits popping up today are pretty low now. You know, pretty low because I acknowledge what the first thought is, right?
Yeah. I mean, but it's even, I've become like sometimes almost too self-critical even because of it, right? Where like you start over-analyzing, even where it's like, I'll start like fretting over or stressing over something, like a comment I made to somebody, you know, like 3 weeks ago or even years ago. There's still things I think about where I said something to somebody years ago, and like I'll be just sitting there watching TV, right? And like something happens and it triggers a memory, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I said that. You know what I mean? It's like those people probably don't even fucking.
They
like,
let
what?
it go a long
They're like,
time ago.
You said that? You know what I mean? In my head, it's like, dude, that's still like an important thing that I messed up on. But it's always trivial shit, right? It's not like actual serious stuff. Because that's the one good thing I can say is like big things, right? There's really no big things where I can look at where I can say like I ruined something with a friendship because I did this, or like, you know, like some major incident happened and it just changed everything from that point on. You know what I mean? I never had any of that like real critical kind of thing happen to me. So it's, you know, just getting to this point. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling now.
No, I mean, it makes sense, man. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think everybody listening does too, you know?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to accountability, man.
Right.
You said that, and you acknowledge your accountability, but how many stories do you hear about people doing shitty stuff and, you know, well, that's how I was raised, or
it's somebody else's fault. Like that's one thing you never heard about you when you're doing your point or no point. It wasn't, well, they made me mad, so.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I do.
And a lot of that is, it's like whenever, and see, that's something I do. That's the one thing I do kind of tough love with the kid, right? Is like, cause I think about just like that. Like, it's not they made me mad. It's like, what made you mad? It was, they said something, but you reacted that way. I reacted that way. So it's not them making you mad. It's you actually reacting that way. That's the issue. You know what I mean? Like, they could say whatever and you could take it and go, you're right. Or you could go, oh yeah, well, fuck you and fuck this, fuck that. You know what I mean? And it's that reaction that really is like the predicator for what happens next. And that's something that like I had a hard time getting to, but now it's where I'm starting to catch that filter sooner. So I understand, like, you know, just let it not be such an impactful thing to my psyche or to my ego or whatever it is that's triggering that.
Yeah.
That's my vulnerability more so than that person. And that's where I say like 1 and 0, if that's affecting me, they won. Right? And I didn't win. I don't like to lose. So that means now I gotta fucking change it. I gotta analyze it. I gotta go back to the drawing board. I gotta get more ones than they get ones. And so that's where like I did it a different way, right? But it's still the same thing. My level of self accountability to get me to the point of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. I should or shouldn't say this. This is how I should act. You know, it's a fucking myriad and circus that I had to go through to get to this fucking point. But I'm here and I feel good about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you were talking about that. Something happened yesterday that I actually had the thought of like, that right there was a derogatory enough statement that I should be mad, but I'm not. And I was for the life of me trying to remember while you were talking what it was, but it really stuck out to me as like, that's because I'm not vulnerable in that area.
Yeah. Well, and
you know,
and you see that, right? Like, look, right now when you see this like political argument stuff, right? The far left versus far right. you see a lot of that kind of antagonizing, and then like I'll push the button on you enough, and then when you attack me or say something back, now I'm gonna play the victim,
Yeah.
right? Even though I'm digging and I'm waiting because I want that, and I want to have that to be able to be like, oh, gee, why you got to be such an asshole like that, you know? Like that's how I'm gonna try to say in my mind, or those people are saying in their mind, oh, I got him to react and overreact, so now I can fucking put it back in his face.
Yeah, the emphasis can be put on the reaction.
Yeah, exactly, and not on. And it's like in any sport, right? Usually, the person that gets caught is the person that retaliates, and they're the ones that their team takes the penalty, or they're the ones that gets hurt more so than the other person, right? And you see a lot of that with these posturings on both sides, and it's very easy to be the aggressor until you can play the victim, and then to switch over. It's amazing to me how fast some people can go from like, this is the way it is, to all of a sudden like, why is everybody picking on me? You know what I mean? Like this is not fair. It's not fair how this is. And it's funny to me that like something like people can, pull that victim card out so quickly. And that's where like I try to think like you got to hold yourself accountable in some senses. And along the way, like somebody treats you like shit, think, what was it, something you did or was it them? If it's something you did, that goes back onto you. There's an accountability there. You either have to, make up for it somehow, or maybe the situation is what it is. You get through it, you go about it. But if it's like you overreacting, or they trigger you, there's just the difference in the whole idea of like whether or not it was a needed or necessary reaction versus an overreaction. And when you're overreacting, you're losing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's in the 12 steps, there's the 4th and 5th step. And it's kind of geared towards that exact thing. Like if somebody harms you or you're angry or something like that, you identify the feeling. And then the very next thing you have to do is like you figure out why. And then the very next thing you have to do is, without talking about anything about why it was justified or what they did, figure out what your role is in it. That's like one of the hardest things to do, right? Like to actually disregard what the other person did and just look for yours. But a lot of times it is those things. It's, well, I'm vulnerable in this area.
Yeah.
Or
dude, I put zeros on my board all the time. You know what I mean? I have more 0 days than 1 days, and that's because of that exact thing. It's like,
that's hard, man. I don't think a lot of people without help can do that.
Yeah.
The other thing I forgot to say while you were talking is I also realized is like the strongest people can break quickly, because it's like what I realized, I consider myself a very, very strong person. Like I could take a lot of stress. I could put a lot of weight on my shoulders. But when it becomes too much, it's like only a little bit was put on there. But because that load is so heavy, I'll break.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, yeah. And I was noticing, not probably in those words, but now years later, being able to look back and figure out like what's all going on. That is one thing I noticed too, because I can figure a lot of things out on my own. I can accomplish a lot of things that I put my mind to, but it's hard to know when's enough's enough. And I think the strongest people have the biggest falls sometime, and that's what I found with myself. Unfortunately, sometimes when you take a big fall, I mean, it's a big, like there's a lot of weight. It can kill you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I was starting to feel like with myself. Like the weight was so heavy. And also, honestly, just being completely vulnerable, it was a complete lack of self-love.
And I think you did touch on it. Like that's one of the hardest things for me is knowing when, like how much can you take on your own versus knowing when to ask for help, right? And for me, it's always that thing. Like I always think like, I can do that. I can do this. I can handle this. I can take this on. I can take that on. I'll just compartmentalize them, I'll figure it out, right? But somewhere along the way, right, there's like a point where it's not bad to ask for help, or it's it's networking. Even it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes, right? And those are the times when it's the understanding of like the value versus doing it yourself versus some asking for the help or having somebody else, help you through it. And a lot of times, if you can't recognize it on your own, you're going to break your own back trying to get through that scenario. And then hindsight, you're like, oh, fuck, I should have.
I think our generation is actually, it's probably our generation and the one before us is the absolute worst at that because especially men, you're taught like, it's my job to, whatever it needs to be, that's what I'm going to need to be,
right.
Which is a great attribute to have. But asking for help is also a great attribute to have too when you need it.
Yeah.
I know I'm guilty of that more times than I'm successful at it for sure. But that's one of the things, like getting into group therapy and doing the steps, like a lot of what that's geared at is to give you a network so that you're supposed to reach out to it. So it like artificially trains me not to feel like I had to do everything on my own. So it's, I've had some recent times where like I got this under control. It gets out of control. And you're just left there with like shame that you're in the situation. Right?
What's the quote, right? What, like, hard times make hard men make good times make soft men, and soft men make hard times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it goes, and so it goes. I think we're in that cycle. We are hitting a lot of soft men right now. We're creating, and it's gonna create hard times here pretty soon.
I've always been the type of like, in my mind at least, and it's played out so far where I have this strong belief, you just tell me what the rules are and I'll find a way. But I think also it's because of that, like our generation, I think we're literally split. Half of us are these weak ass motherfuckers that you're just scratching your head about. And the other half know how to get shit done. I know I fall in that I know how to get shit done category. So I'm almost like, I don't even care what the rules are. I'll find a way. It's like everybody else makes it easy to get there sometimes. Yeah. Actually, I'm trying to be truthful and not also overstep but my actual beliefs, if I'm really honest, those are my actual beliefs. Like I sometimes don't feel an accomplishment because I think it was easy because of what I saw that others could have done that they didn't do. But that's that Dunner-Kruger effect, right? Where if you, I might be misquoting it, but basically those who are incredibly capable think everybody is, and those who are completely incapable are so incapable they don't know they're not capable. So you're kind of left in the same spot at different spectrums. But I do find that sometimes we're like, why isn't everybody doing this exact thing? You know what I mean?
You know what I think about, like, kind of the way things are now. You look at like social media, TikTok, and like YouTube, how it's creating all these young people with a lot of money. And it's like, I wonder how many of those kids realize like what they have right now is special for sure, but it's not going to last forever. I mean, maybe it only lasts a couple of years, maybe it lasts 20, but maybe in 5 years, their life is completely different. Hopefully along the way, I mean, if you're making that much money at a young age, could you imagine?
Invest it in other opportunities.
And hopefully they're doing that, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully they have good family structure. They have people around them, smart people around them to help them invest the wealth or keep the wealth, right? Because, I mean, it's, you know how often, especially look at athletes and celebrities and anything else, you get in that lifestyle and you could easily lose it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a dope whip is not an investment.
All right. Lambos, you know what I mean? Hey, so have you guys seen those videos? It's like I don't know the guy's name, but he'll do like, he's he's like a TikTok star now, but all he does is go like knock on doors of people's houses and ask what they do for a living. Or he'll like walk up to people driving nice cars and he'll be like, "Hey, you got a nice car. I'm just curious, what do you do for a living?" And they tell him or whatever.
Oh, really? I've never heard of him.
He's become a TikTok star. That's all he does. And he's become a star doing that, right? Okay, cool. But like, I ended up getting stuck where I was on the couch last night. The girls have this video on and that pops on. And I start watching it, but I'm watching it because I'm like, oh, look at these cars. You know what I mean? And I'm like looking at all the nice cars. And like a majority of these people that are on there were like younger. And they're like, oh, I make movie, or I'm in like the music industry, or like real estate seemed to be like the biggest one. Like real estate seemed to be the biggest one. But I'm looking, and most of these nice cars are like Lambos. Lambos are nice, right? But like if you get like a Gallardo, it's not like the nicest nice car. Like it looks fancy, but that's like minimum in the game. You know what I mean? That's like you just got your foot in the game. Cool. You're driving like a nice car, but it's clunky. It doesn't drive that good. It's not like the nicest of cars. And I think to myself, like you said, a lot of these, they're not investments, right? They're toys. Mm-hmm. Look at them like toys. If you want to look at them like an investment, you got to spend the money on them. You got to take care of them. You got to keep them low mileage. You know, like you got to do all these appropriate steps. I doubt most of these people are doing that. You know, most of the time they're probably just taking these cars, driving the shit out of them until it's on to the next thing, you know? And hey, that's cool, man. But as long as you can afford to do that, that's great, right? But hopefully, you know, in 10 years or whatever time it is when that gig goes up, hopefully they do enough, or they've done enough that to where they can sustain. You know what I mean? That's tough, man. I couldn't imagine being a kid and just...
Well, the rules don't make it easy, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of incentive in the public structure to spend. Yeah. Not just from like the social media aspect, but even the tax rules and things like that. You know, so there's a lot of incentive to spend, and then there's a lot of penalization to invest, right? Now, there's some overlap, but I think, you hear this all the time. In school, they teach you all this shit that you don't need to know, like quite literally. Like sometimes I really embrace that thought with the kids when they can't understand certain stuff about school. I'm like, who gives a fuck? You'll never use it. And the sooner you can realize that and still get the good grade because that's what you need for this moment, the better off you're going to be, right? Those that get tricked to think, well, because I know this, I'm going to be something, I think are in a worse off position than those who say, fuck it, I'm going to just go make my own way, in my humble opinion. And I mean humble as an emphasis. That's just the way I look at life. But to understand finances, investing, how to operate, run a business, how to understand tax write-offs, I mean, that is where it's at. Because the truly successful know how to do that like a pro. You know, so a lot of times I'll see something, I'm like, man, that's a waste of money. But then I start thinking about it, I'm like, only if it's not free. You know, like you go down to Newport Beach, which is, we've had a few vacations there in beach houses. You see these G-Wagons riding everywhere. And I remember originally I was like, this is the most inefficient ride on the planet. You're spending $200K on this thing, and it looks like a piece of shit, in my opinion. They're starting to grow on me, as a matter of fact. They're starting to grow on me. But that's just my opinion in the moment. But then I started thinking at it deeper, and I'm like, you think they're really paying, or are they just driving that around for free? If you're driving the Lambo around for free, then it's a great investment because you're not giving it to the government.
Well, and if some of these people, if they know what they're doing and they're doing it right, they're getting like sponsorship deals, right? So it's just marketing for that company, right? I know Tom Segura has done that. He's been doing that where he'll be driving some fucking dope ass cars. Oh yeah. And it's just for like a couple weeks, you know. And it's just make a video with the car. Talk about how cool it is. Drive it around, let you be seen in it. You know what I mean? I want to get to that fucking level, you know?
Yeah,
not really though. I'd rather just it's what's the other phrase is like those who want to be rich and famous just try being rich first before you're famous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I just hit rich, I don't give a fuck if I hit famous.
Right.
You know what
Yeah, I
I
don't.
mean?
I think anything, what I've learned like quite recently that I think I've formulated an opinion I feel strong enough to like go with is because of lack of self-love, we want more to think we're going to be more, right? So I have a lack of self-love, so I need a title. And I think if I get that title, it makes me that title. Lack of self-love, so I have a lot of stuff, it makes me valuable. Right? And on and on and on and on. But I think that right mix, and it's a fine line, whereas if you have complete self-love, then it's something you can just enjoy.
Yeah.
You know? Then it actually becomes something tangible that life actually wants to live out through you.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking about making that, like solidifying that as a foundational piece of who I am and how I'm going to go about it. Still kind of waiting to see what comes out of that thought and those thoughts, but you could spot it a mile away if it's just, oh, that person thinks they're somebody just because they're famous. That to me, that's fame, where that desire to become famous comes from. I'm not enough.
Right.
Don't love myself enough, so I can become famous and everybody else loves me, and then that's proof that I am lovable. You know, and I think that's the mistake that we make over and over again. That's my 2 cents on it, at least. But I think if you could do all of it, like if you can use anything that you can use to enhance life, all for it.
Dude, so we were eating lunch today, and Sadie asked me, she said, what would you rather have? One superpower or be able to speak 7 different languages? And I immediately was like, 7 different languages is being able to speak that is almost like having a superpower. I was like, do you realize? And so then I actually got it. I was like, do you realize what you'd be able to do if you could speak 7 different languages fluently? Like the doors that open up and like the opportunities or things that you would experience that nobody else can experience without that ability. And I just started like really getting into it. I was like, dude, I would love to be able to say like I spoke 7 different languages.
But what's
fluently.
the superpower, man? That's what I keep thinking about. What is the superpower?
I mean, the ability to make money. It's going to open up doors for you business-wise, internationally.
Oh, no, I'm saying what is it counterposed to like the
any
actual
superpower?
Like fly?
Mean, if you wanted to fly, sure.
I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
But
that's a tough one.
Knowing 7 different languages is like having a superpower.
No, it is.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm not disagreeing at all, actually.
But, I mean, she just said one superpower, whichever superpower you want to pick. You know what I mean?
Not only that, like the way your mind would need to be formulated to be able to understand the culture, to be able to speak the language. I mean, mind power.
And think about, like, if you're talking actual fluent, like, fluent, you're understanding, like you said, culture, the dialects, where you're at, the location, how to talk to the certain people, like their broken versions of it, or their their local version of it, right? You know, because different areas going to have a little bit of a difference, and
all the nuances.
Nuances. Yeah. So like, and you start going over it, and I was just like thinking, I was like, holy shit, like. That would be insane, because it is the mind power that you have to be able to control that much and recall it instantly, right? Like just to go from one to the other without like crossing up or getting confused yourself, like mind-boggling. You know, that's not easy. You know what I mean? That's not easy.
I mean, the ability of the mind is what intrigues me the most at that stage, to be able to take in that much information and that much fluid information and how it might open up other areas. Like your mind would be freer, I think, if it had the capability of doing that.
Yeah. Those are the challenges that I kind of start to like that intrigues me more so than other things. Is
What language would you want to know, like to be fluent in?
Spanish, definitely.
Yeah.
Italian, probably like Mandarin.
Yeah.
Shit, I don't know. Fucking Creole.
That is another language.
Like, I mean, does Rastafari count? I mean, it is kind of, it is a language, you know. But yeah, I mean, really, like when you get down to it, right? I don't know exactly the 7 languages, but you think like, you know, Latin. If you knew Latin, you could break down almost all language, you know, to an extent. Germanic, no, but Latin-based languages, you can actually break down origin of words, the meaning of the words. You can start to figure out words just off of how they sound, and it just, you know it. You know what I mean? So that would be cool. Some sort of one of the Germanics, you know what I mean? Not necessarily German, but a Germanic-based language, so you could, you know, because again, certain areas they may not speak fluent French, but they might be able to speak enough that you could communicate with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even if they weren't fluent, if you still knew, if you had a good spread of language, you could still go to areas where you may not be able to fully communicate with that person, but you can find common communication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That'd be tough.
Yeah, I can only think with my little mind right now. Like, what language? I'm like, well, we're close to Mexico.
Right.
There's a lot of people who speak Spanish right around us.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a definite for here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a definite, right? Like, I wouldn't necessarily go and learn Sanskrit, or, you know what I mean? I wouldn't go and fucking learn, you know, I don't know, maybe Ethiopian. I can't say I wouldn't. Maybe I would. I don't know. But I couldn't see myself in a lot of use case scenarios unless I was in Ethiopia to speak Ethiopian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right about it being a superpower, though. You could accomplish a lot.
Like, and I've thought too, like, I remember when I did my foreign exchange program in high school, I came back.
Where was it again?
In Colima, Mexico. And so when I came back, my teacher, like, she's like the AP Spanish teacher, kind of the head of the foreign language department and stuff. And she's like, you know, she's trying to, I look at it now and it was like really good advice. And she was actually like smart when she's telling me this shit. Back then I was like, what the fuck ever? You're crazy. I don't want to listen to you. You know what I mean? But she's talking about how, like, you're at this age, you did a foreign exchange program, you lived in another country, you know, for a summer. You passed your classes there. You came back, like, you have this ability. Obviously, like, you can speak it enough, you know. And I wasn't fluent, but I was able to speak it enough to get
passable.
Yeah, you know, I could get by no matter what. And then over time, it goes away a little bit. But she's telling me, she's like, you're like this far away from being able to be an ambassador, or to work Olympic events for the United States, or to do this, that, and the other. And she's naming off things that, like, it sounds like things that, like, how do fucking people even get that job? You know what I mean? And it's like, oh.
They speak 2 languages.
Yeah, they speak those languages.
That's a good start.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. And it is. I look at it now and I think to myself, like, fuck, dude, I could have just gone right into college and just majored in a foreign language and minored in something else, or majored in something and minored in foreign language, and I could have, who knows what doors it opens up, you know what I mean? Like,
we're at that first stage where, you know, like around 40, where you think too much life has gone by and now I'm stuck. And I don't believe that. I really don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't either.
You know, so doors are still open, wide open.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this dude walked by, it was a while ago, but he walked by my office and I forgot what he said he did originally. I'm like, he told me, and he's like, but now I'm an actor. I was like, what? And I'm like, when did you start doing that? And he was like, a couple years ago. But it was cool because he's like an older person, and he's like, there are barely any older actors. Like, the ones who made it retired. And there are tons and tons of positions for older actors.
Right.
So he's like, I'm just getting them everywhere.
Right.
Wow.
And it started out by him being retired and being bored and doing a church play. And he really liked it. But I remember, for me, it's like it just stood out as a life lesson that I'll speak for me, not everybody else sitting here. I know for me, I'll get into ruts and I'll think, well, this is it. This is what I have to do. And then stories like that remind me, like, nah, like how long would it take? Because I'm like you, I grew up in Southern California. How close was I to speaking fluently? Very fucking close. I don't know how I know as many words as I do and can't speak it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
They're all
Like
curse words.
that close. I know. But I mean, we just have to make a goal and go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I find myself now kind of like you said, like I try not to get complacent with anything, including that. Like I'll sit around and I haven't been doing, see, this is the one side is keeping the motivation going with this stuff. It's like, I'll put up my own barrier, even if it's something I want to do. There's a part of me that's like, no, fuck that. Don't do that right now. And I got to like constantly get over that my own barrier. Right. But the same thing is like, started listening to Spanish music again, started listening to Spanish lessons again, putting on podcasts or something, anything that I can listen to Spanish so I can start hearing it again, start thinking about it again and catching up to it. And I started doing that again on my own. And it's the same thing. It's like, there is no limit to like the ability for us to be able to learn it, right? Like the only hurdle is, now maybe we're not going to become fluent in 7 languages. Okay. But the ability to start learning one is there. You just have to take the appropriate steps. I've already got like a pretty decent background in it, so I'm further along in the path than some other people, right? But the thing is the discipline to say to myself, like, this is what I want to do. I want to get to where I'm fluent, or I want to be able to, anybody can say something to me and I know what they're saying, as opposed to like couple words here and then I'm trying to piece it together. You know what I mean?
Isn't that part of language though?
Yeah.
I think that is part of language. Like I don't hear everything everybody says, in particular if they come from different dialects of English. Even I find myself with a lot of people like, okay, they said 7 words, I heard 3 and I think this is what they mean.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's people coming to my mind right now that when I speak with them, I have to concentrate to keep up.
Yeah. And I find myself like stuff like that, right? Trying to listen to it. And I'm trying to actively engage in listening to it and absorb it. But my mind is thinking of trying to wander off somewhere else, and you're trying to pull it back, right? Or maybe I'm listening to it while I'm doing dishes or while I'm doing other things. And then I start, something said in the lesson starts making me think about something else, which triggers like me going off, and then I got to pull myself back in, like, oh shit, I got to listen to what they're saying, you know what I mean? And that kind of shit though, like you said, it's hard. Even, there's times even in jiu-jitsu where I can be sitting there watching the whole time, intent, knowing what's going on, hearing everything he said, and then we go 3, 2, 1. And I go, oops, what were we doing?
I know. That happened to me. That happened to me the last time I trained. So it would have been Friday. That happened to me. And it's like, I used to like when we were lower belts, you're always, oh shit, we were together doing drills. We were. So it's like, well, now it'll make complete, now it's full circle. But I miss when it was like I was the lower belt so I could be reminded of what was said instead of having to be, I'm good, brother. Instead of being the one who has to go first, right? But yeah, remember that? Where it was like time to go and my mind literally went blank. And I remember, what's always funny to me when my mind goes blank though, is when I see it and I'm so confident when I'm watching it, like, oh yeah, I got that. That's going into my game today.
Oh, easy.
Right?
Easy.
1 blank.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's the story of growing, right? I would love to see you accomplish that goal because I've heard you talk about it and I know it means something to you.
Yeah.
You know, and it will. Not today, if not today, in the future, as long, right? Just don't give up on it.
Yeah, exactly.
You will.
And that's the thing. It's like That's what it comes down to more than anything is like, don't abandon it. Just don't completely abandon it. You know, I don't have to be on it every day. I'm not trying to do it to get a degree. I'm not trying to do it to, you know, the only thing I'm trying to do it to is to prove to myself, that like I can still grow. Like you said, just because we're getting to an age doesn't mean we should start setting up roadblocks for ourselves. That's the time when we should say, like, we've spent all this time in the past. Now it's time for us to fucking chart our own path in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, now is the time when, if whatever it might be, like, I've never settled on one thing as it is anyways. And I'm still constantly always like, dude, I want to do 100 things. You know what I mean? And I'm constantly thinking about like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But along the way too, you got to think like, the discipline is the thing that you're abandoning. You can't abandon everything and go on to the next thing. Sometimes you have to complete those things, or going forward is pointless. You know what I mean? If you start 100 projects and you finish one, was it really worth starting 100 projects? You know what I mean?
Right.
If everything around you is incomplete and you've built up a half-built castle, well, now when somebody comes to knock it down, well, the fucking bathroom's done though. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, maybe they'll come in the front door, but that shitter's solid, dude. You know, like.
Well, I think too, in the process of success, the things you learned along the way are components of that final product when you get there, right? Like, I mean, anybody could go out and start a business, right? You just put the paperwork in, you have a few $100, boom, you have a business, right? But everybody's not going to do the same thing with that name, right?
For sure.
And it's the things you learn along the way that get you there. Sometimes it's stuff you learn by degree. Sometimes it's stuff you don't. Most times it's stuff that you don't. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, like in my profession, for instance, is a good example. The degree opens the door to be able to do the thing. That's pretty much it, at least as far as my estimation of it goes, you know? And then other things, it's not even that, you know? But I sometimes try and remind myself of that. Like, I'm training to be the person that can do that thing, not necessarily to do the thing. If that makes sense. It's a very...
No. It makes perfect sense. I'm very good at like understanding what it is that I want to do. But sometimes what I'm not good at is exactly how to market it or how to put that same idea into motion, right? So like I can see the plan concise in my head, which is different than, like you said, what can somebody do with once they have the idea, right? I can only go so far, and then I have a harder time where it's like, okay, I have this part of it. Now it's making it run or making it work. You know what I mean? Like I can conceptualize it, but now it's taking it from that and bringing it to that next level. And some people are really good at like taking something else and taking it there. Some people are good at all of it, right? Some people are just, they have the ability, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do it, and they do it. And it's good. I have that thought, but somewhere along the way, I still like find the issue where it's like I struggle at this point. I need the help, or I need to somehow get over that hurdle still. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know for me, what I've learned a lot about life and developing is like, I didn't understand why I was struggling with this piece early on. And then it comes together, and then I find out how why it was worth doing that thing in the beginning, which almost seems like it has nothing to do about what I was doing today, you know? But like, well, anyway, your Spanish reminded me of that, you know? Like, what's that exactly going to relate to in your ultimate success of whatever's down the line? Who fucking knows? Mm-hmm. But it's an integral part of the process.
Yeah.
You know? And anyway, I try and remind myself of that quite often, because we're always growing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, I had a mentor say, because I was struggling, like, man, I think, is this arrogance, right? Is this arrogance or is this confidence, right? And then he said something I thought was really cool. He's like, anybody who has ever accomplished anything had a level of unreasonable hubris. And I immediately got out a dictionary. I'm like, what the heck is hubris, right? But basically, it's like on the threshold of being arrogant. You believe in yourself so strongly that you can do it, or else they would have never attempted the thing that was unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just try and remind myself, like, there are going to be times where I step out and I'm going to sound arrogant, and that's okay. And I also believe it's kind of one of those things, too. You're not responsible for how other people view you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I mean, I've had some life circumstances of recent being like where I've now understood, like, oh, that is not gaudy, or it's not wasteful. It's just the rules of how you do things. But I never knew because I never got here before. You know, like realistically, you know, where I started understanding some stuff, and it's like, well, it's it's three categories that I've started putting people in. Some people are going to just hate, period. Nothing you can do about it. No matter what you do, they're going to hate.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's other people who are going to love. No matter what you do.
Unconditionally.
And I wouldn't say fuck them at the end of that one. But, you know, at the same time, it's on the opposite end of the spectrum. So if you got a lot of those people in your corner, you can't necessarily trust what they say.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have people that are going to wane with you depending on where you're at, what you're doing. And, you know, but what all of that boiled down to me to really mean is other people's opinions don't hold a lot of value. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to really understand that.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost valueless. Almost. Not all the way, but almost. Because you never know where it's coming from.
Right.
You know, but what is valuable is that internal dialogue, right? So like in you, Chris, if it's like Spanish, well, that's valuable. You don't know why. Everybody else could say, dude, are you planning on getting a job in Mexico?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, right.
But it's still
for the next wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's for my other family, guys. Come on.
No, but my point though is like that's a passion inside of you.
Yeah.
And that's the knowledge or the peace beyond understanding, where you just somehow know.
Right.
Like this is a part of my process. And if I don't get this, then I will not have done something I was supposed to do.
I thought you were going to say strength of street knowledge.
Strength of street
I
knowledge.
was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm on a soapbox a tiny bit. But
no, you're good.
Anyway, all these things have had me just brought up like things I've been thinking about recently, you know, and it's like if you're doing what's on the inside, you're going to have different reactions to it. But ultimately, if it's on the inside, it's worth doing.
Dude, it hasn't been until the last few years, probably within the last like 3 to 5 years. I don't know exactly when, but I spent so many years like always questioning like what am I doing, and if what I'm doing is making other people around me happy, like the people that matter the most to me. You know what I mean? Not necessarily is it making me happy, but I'm questioning like, Am I making my dad proud? Am I making my mom happy? You know, am I a good father for my kids? Like all these things where I felt like I was always trying to do stuff to make sure that I was fulfilling whatever I thought somebody else's view would be. You know what I mean? Like whether it's like my dad, like I don't want to be a bad son. I don't want him to look at me and be like, he failed as a father. And oh my God, what did I do wrong as a father myself? You know, so like it's shit like that where it took me so long to like get over the idea of like, it's not really about, like you said, opinions don't necessarily matter. Right. And so my thoughts of like, am I making them happy? Like, if what I'm doing is it where they're, you know, they think highly of me, like I don't need to fucking strive for that. You know what I mean? But I found myself like constantly, that was my thought process more along the ways of making my own decision for myself was like, what decision can I make that will check the boxes for these other people? So I fit the role of like, he's doing the right thing. You know, and not necessarily trying to step out in that questionable zone or doing the thing that maybe, like you said, like being on the threshold of like knowing I can do greatness, but still being afraid to try it, right? Like somewhere along the lines, those people know, like, I gotta try this, and they succeed or they don't, you know? But yeah, dude, it took me forever just to get over that whole idea of like appeasement versus making myself comfortable, you know?
Yeah. I know I had this idea of early on, like, oh, I'm going to create a company that's going to have my last name to it. It's going to be something that can pass in the family or whatever.
Generations
And all, whatever. All this thought, you know, these thoughts I had. Well, then, like, fast forward, Jaden had to do a report on an entrepreneur. And I was like, oh, who'd you pick? And it was some guy who has a shoe with Nike. Like, that's who he picked. I'm like, that guy's not an entrepreneur. Like, Nike's the entrepreneur.
Right.
That guy just sold his name. He's an employee.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, you know, so you could have used me. And he's like, you're an entrepreneur? You know what I mean? But how that comes full circle, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is my thought, like, name on a building and this and that. And, like, people who don't have the understanding will never see, you know? And a lot of times, if everybody had understanding, that everybody would be doing all the things they want to do, you know? So I kind of, like, put that all on the plate, too, of, like, because that's the thing that's bothered me the most of everything along the way. It's like, I mean, some of the relationships that I thought were important to me, I felt have been left behind because of a greater ability to understand. You know?
Yeah.
I see you shaking your head, so I'm glad, because I was expecting to see, like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
No.
But honestly, like, it's like, if you hit that next level, it is hard to now function on whatever the previous one was, and you see, like, people just start falling off, right? And I know Chris, you and I had a phone conversation that was pretty important to me about that, where it's like, is something wrong with me? You know, and I know we've talked in the past too, where I'm like, I was left feeling like something was wrong with me. Like, why isn't this working in conjunction? You know, but it makes sense now to me. Like, people can only understand up to what they are allowing themselves to.
Yeah.
I always had a hard time too with like the idea of like pigeonholing myself into one thing. You know, like somebody asks you, well, what are you? What do you do? Well, like, as cool as it sounds to say, you know, oh yeah, I own a home inspection business. Yeah, you know, I own a home inspection business. Cool. But really, it's like, what in my own mind over years and years and years, it's like, what do I want to do? I want to be a jack of all trades. You know, like, I want to be an entrepreneur, like, more than just be a doctor or just do this, just do that. I want to do a lot of things. I don't want to just do one thing. You know what I mean? And so even with that kind of thought process, I think along the way, you got to learn every day, your entire life, right? You never stop learning. And there's a lot of people that they'll get complacent. They're just, I'm just a lawyer, or I'm just a doctor. And then they don't try to get out of that zone. And so maybe they enjoy a good life, but they could have done more, and they could have enjoyed it even more if they would have tried along the way. Maybe that's something they regret later on in life, you know? Like, I don't want to have those regrets. Like I said, like, I want to be able to say I'm fluent in Spanish. I had the regret of, like, I wanted to learn Italian so I could have a conversation with my grandfather in Italian before he passed away.
Oh, wow.
So I started learning Italian. I never became fluent, and then my grandfather passed away. So that's a goal I will never fucking accomplish, that it's one of those things in the back of my head I think about. And I'm like, fuck, I'll never get to accomplish that. But that doesn't mean I can't stop trying to accomplish goals, right? You know, I mean, there's no reason that we can't do more than just what we're doing now, you know? And so I that's more so than anything I do. Like, I like to have those challenges, but it's a constant challenge in itself to, like, know when you're taking on too much, know when you can't complete something, or like I was saying earlier, right? Like if you're doing 20 things and you only complete one of those things, was it really worth your time and effort to do all of those things? Like somewhere there's a point of value versus time loss, you know?
For sure.
And
I know, for sure. I know I struggle with that quite a bit. You know, just always there's a next. But just so happenstance, the next thing I'm going to do is outside the law. And that's a cool thing.
right.
You know?
Awesome.
I'm not going to reveal anything until it's all up and going. But it's a fantastic idea. It is going to work. I know for a fact. And anyway, I'm pretty proud of it. Like, I'm headed the direction I always wanted to be. And then everything I'm doing is like spokes off of it, you know? But the key point is like, if you're not going to be happy doing something, it's not worth it too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like that thing too. You can only do what you could do in a given day. A lot of times for me, I think I could do 100 things. In reality, I could do 2.
Yeah.
To be happy.
That's one of the hardest things for me going through life is honing in on what is it that makes you happy. You know, I think you asked me that recently, and I've really been trying to internalize that lately. And I think the one of the main reasons why I'm having such difficulty in trying to find what makes me happy is because for the last 20 years, my purpose in life was just to take care of my kids. You know what I mean? Like, do whatever you have to do to make sure that there's food on the table, that there's a roof over your head. It doesn't matter what it is. You're going to make sure that that gets done. And now I'm kind of phasing out of that role. And yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, I like to do this, I like to do that. But really, the deeper question in that is what's going to make me happy.
Who am I?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for certain, not just yet, you know, what it is that's going to make me happy. Because even at the other side of that coin, I'm still looking for things that is going to make my wife happy. Like, what is it within the spectrum of things I like to do that she can live with? You know what I mean? So maybe part of the issue is always putting somebody else in front of me. And how do you remove that layer and look further, deeper inside? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know for me, I've always had, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, you may do something that has nothing to do with what you do now. But the first thing that I put a lot of effort into was litigating cases. Mm-hmm. And it really taught me, like, when I got good at it, of how I'm supposed to do some life and a lot of business, where it's like a lot of attorneys will just give this pile of shit to the jury and say, here's my argument, you figure it out. Instead of putting everything into this nice, neat package to like figure out like, okay, these are the questions I'm going to ask the witness, but how am I going to ask these questions where it makes the most impact and the most sense? So you pick out these things that you're going to try your case on, and that's the world. And everything funnels through that world. And there might be one cool thing over here that I really want to do, but if it doesn't match the world, then it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, that's kind of how I've looked at business. For me, it's like, well, I can't be happy without my wife. Mm-hmm. And I can't be happy without my kids. Right? So they're factored in. I can't be happy without doing the thing I want to do. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're creating this nice, neat package. And then from there, that's the answer. This is what makes me happy. Mm-hmm. Right? This is the thing that can make me happy.
And it may look something completely different.
Completely different. Right? When I finally got good at something where I could go out, and I'm not kidding, when I finally got good enough at litigation, had the type of job that I could prove it, and I could command a very high wage for it, mm-hmm. I realized this doesn't make me happy because I lost myself along the way mm-hmm. of what makes what matters. Yeah. I just got caught up and got good at this.
Yeah.
But to me, that to me has been one of the it's hard to do. Like I'm in the process of separating from the Air Force with only 6 more years left to retire.
Yeah.
But I know it's part of the game because it meets all of those elements. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just hard to be true to ourselves and just accept that that's the answer. But I read something recently, like a lot of people are like, what's my purpose? Or why was I put on this earth? And it's because it's too big of a question, because we can't know that, because we don't know our whole life.
Right.
And we don't know all the X factors that are going to come into play. But an easier question is, this is what I know about myself right now. What would make me happy today? You know? So that's kind of how I look at it, where it's, and along the way, like, you learn life things too, where, you know, like Jim Carrey has this thing where he's like, man, if I had one wish for you all, is that all of you could become famous and all of you could become rich. So you could know what I know, that it doesn't mean much. You know, and so you can stop wasting your time with that. You know, but to me, that was like really important. You know, I haven't hit it obviously at that level or anywhere close, but litigation is one of those things where I was like, man, I got good at that. Really good. And it brought me the exact opposite of what I thought it was going to bring me.
Money is one of those curious things.
Money will come with passion, bro.
Well, and I mean, you think, a lot of people think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
To go on to that, a lot of people think that if you get money, you get happiness, right? Like, that's going to solve all the issues. But that's not the case. You know what I mean? Money can enable the ability to not have any problems, but it can also enable the ability to have a lot more problems that you didn't have before, that you don't need.
You're guaranteed to have more problems with money than without. Because when you don't have it, your only problem is you don't have. I don't mean it like that. But anyway, let's let B talk about it.
I heard a really compelling argument against manifestation.
No, I'm not going to believe it.
You
know I'm not going to believe it.
So
this is bullshit already.
The rules of attraction, right? You manifest things that you want.
I'm living and walking proof, though.
Right. Well, so the argument against it is that it's only surveyed with the people, like, you only hear about it, about the people that it's worked for. You don't hear about it, about the people, because, okay, so let's say Eminem, right? One of the greatest ever to do it. How many people shared that same passion, had that same vision, maybe even had the same skill level, but because of a series of unfortunate events, did not have certain things take off for them the way that he did?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't hear about those stories, though. Those names don't get brought into the light because there's no way to compare it. So you only hear from the people who are successful. And I'm not saying that the argument is right, the argument is wrong. I'm just saying it was a compelling argument, because for every successful, not necessarily rich, but for every successful person who claimed that they manifested that future for themselves, there's got to be tens of hundreds, if not millions, of other people who share that same dream, who share that same passion, but maybe did not have the little bit of destiny, the little bit of fate that maybe the right person was presented to you at the right time.
The Wally Pips of the world.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And I heard that argument, and it really was compelling to me. It's like, that's true, because it's not that the other person who didn't make it didn't lack the conviction that the successful person. There's no way you can compare the two. But I do know that there are honest people who out there who have the passion for something, who put in the effort, who gave their honest best and was not able to produce the end result, the same end result as somebody who did the same. And on the other side of that, there are people who put in less effort, less work, and achieve greater outcomes with less passion. So I don't know if you can equivocate that to just manifestation alone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the world's best expert on
Right.
manifestation, so I'm not going to speak with that much authority. But I know for myself, I could never not believe it because I know exactly what has happened, exactly what I've done, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it works like really, really, really well for me. My first thoughts though on it is you don't know what the person is putting in back of their effort,
Mm-hmm.
because it really culminates on if today right now to do tomato cans, that's the thing I'm doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? But behind that, what's the energy like, right? Well, the energy behind that is understanding that everything is, for me, everything is everything. There is no separation between spirituality, materialism, what I do for fun, what I do for work. There's no separation between you and me. It's just how it manifests into the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So behind the energy that I put in today is positive energy. It's thoughts that my presence here is going to make this a better podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So you don't know that that's what people are doing. The other thing is, how do people view failure? You know, like basketball was one of my failures. But I really do believe this with enough time, especially with what we were talking about earlier with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have made it in basketball, God help me. I would have never focused on school.
Mm-hmm.
I would have gone probably to some school where I was given a status that was undeserved.
Yeah.
And the second that I graduated, it would be gone.
No, you wouldn't have graduated.
Or
You
maybe
would've-
not have
you would've just gone to
graduated.
the pros.
That wasn't happening.
But what
I declare myself eligible for the Mexico
But in
league.
in that perfect scenario, though, right? In the what if, right? Like, what if you would have been given that ability and you had that opportunity, and then you don't even graduate from college, you don't learn any of the things you've learned along the way. You enjoy a nice, say, 10-year career, right? But then you go broke when your career's over and you're bankrupt because you never learned all these things of responsibilities along the way. Or perhaps maybe your life was great, you were rich, but you had domestic violence cases against you. You've been arrested for DUIs. You know, you got in fights with your managers, or you
Right.
became that athlete that was like the problem athlete, right?
Right.
I think the biggest way to see that, or at least for me, the thing that the easiest to see it is with athletes. Like you said, the people that like a Johnny Manziel,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who didn't have to put forth as much effort as somebody else, and he was given everything.
Johnny Football.
Yeah, and he ended up fucking it all away because he just thought he was better than, or he thought he deserved it all. And then you look at a guy like Tom Brady. Came in, drafted in the 7th round, had shitty numbers. Nobody even thought of him as anything. Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. He comes in. Drew Bledsoe never gets another chance to be a quarterback for the New England Patriots because Brady wins a Super Bowl, and that starts Brady. You know what I mean? So many other countless examples, though. But it is like you said, like you don't know, like what if you would have accomplished that goal? The life lessons learned along the way are totally different than where you're at now based off of what you've done today.
Well, I mean, it's the greatest argument would be, let's take basketball.
Mm-hmm.
As much effort as I put, let's say I keep putting it in, and I'm going to make it to the NBA. I'm manifesting that, right? I mean, I can't sit here and say there are players that are shorter than 5'9" that made it, but what are the percentage in the world?
Right.
How many Muggsy Bogues were
How
there?
many are
You know
there?
what I mean?
Right?
How many Spud Webbs?
So it's like I'm asking of life something that life is not giving to me. Most people don't understand how to follow their life's purpose to begin with. They don't hear the inside voice telling them what's the very next thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that why I don't view basketball as a failure is one of the things that happened inexplicably for me was I had foresight to see what was going to happen. It wasn't that I couldn't play. It wasn't that I wasn't going to get a scholarship. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even the fact that I knew absolutely beyond all surety that I wouldn't go to the NBA. I believe I wouldn't have. I really do believe that. I do. I strongly believe that. But I didn't know that in that moment. But what I did know is probably the NBA is not in the cards. That's a way. But my passion for this is not here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. It was still hard to let go of. So in that moment, what did I have to learn? I had to recognize my passion went away. Life took that away. Yeah. Right? The other thing I had to learn how to do was to give up a title. It wasn't much of a title, but it was a title nonetheless for me. Mm-hmm. When I hit the street courts, people knew who I was. Yeah. Where I balled, at least. Right. People knew me enough when they caught me at the gym. They asked, where are you playing now? And I had to say, oh, I quit to focus on school. Okay, sure you did. Right? But my point is, I had to learn those two very hard lessons of recognizing when passion disappears and not to keep doing something just because there's a force behind you of status or title, and to let that go too. And then I focused on school, which is what felt right inside. I had to learn how to follow what was right inside. Mm-hmm. Those are things that you can't quantify, right? But not everybody is cut out to be a rapper. Right. Not everybody's cut out to be in anything. Right. A lot of times we'll set out for a goal, we'll fail at that goal, but then we'll get something better. But when you take your life totality, that was what you were here for. That was the best outcome for you. Mm-hmm. So the people that I believe that it didn't work for, I believe aren't doing it correctly. You know, they're not doing it correctly. They're holding on to something that was never theirs, that was never going to actually bring them happiness. There's a verse that I do believe in is, seeking, I'm going to translate it the way I understand it. Seeking myself first and all else will fall in order. So if I believe myself one with life, and if I can get in that same energy as the life force, then it's going to take me to the right spot. And every time I get off of it, I could get what I want, but it could be less than. But when I get in with what is there, it's always more than. So I just don't believe it, but that's one person's opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just thought it was compelling. And your story about taking Jaden to go see the warm-ups, it triggered that earlier on in the conversation outside. But every person sitting on that bench, you cannot say lacks the conviction. You know what I mean? They worked every bit as hard as the starter on that team. But why is there...
May even work harder to stay on the team as a nobody, because all they get to do is practice.
Yep. But for twist of fate, somebody else was in the right place at the right time and got presented an opportunity that the bench person didn't get. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I mean, I would like to believe 100% that it's true, that you can truly manifest your destiny. But now I'm more leaning towards you have to manifest the right destiny in order for it to produce itself.
I do agree with that. So we always have this idea of at any given moment, even right now, with all the knowledge I've developed up to this point in my life, I could figure out what my life's purpose is, right? Especially for me right now, where it's I have a successful law practice with the plan to grow larger. I could sit if I wanted to and say, okay, that's my life destiny and that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But is there more inside 5 years from now? How am I going to know? Right. But I won't. But as long as I make the effort to check back in internally, am I in line with life? Right? I mean, even this next idea I have, that's being in line with life. It's I'm going to make a choice between opening up another law office or this other thing. And I'm going to do this other thing. Mm-hmm. Right? not because that's what fuck if I know what's the best one. You have 20 things to do today. Fuck if I know which one's the best one to spend time on. But I do believe in that voice internally. And when it tells me to do something, it's always the best.
It's time to do it.
Yeah.
It's time to do it. So there's a mastery that's probably beyond my level too. But I believe there's a mastery to it that most people will not allow themselves to get to because of getting in the way of their own selves. No one said in the course of manifesting something, you're just going to automatically get that thing.
Right. It still takes a lot of hard work.
It takes something. It takes something, right? You have to know what you want. You have to have the confidence to ask for it. You have to hold on to the belief you're going to get it. And then there are actions along the way. But nobody said in those actions along the way, another thing wouldn't pop out as the right way to go. Like when I was 12 years old, there was this lime green and black Huffy bike that I wanted that I thought was going to make my life the greatest ever if I could just get my hands on it, which I never did, by the way. And who gives a shit?
Right.
Right?
Right.
But that was my 12-year-old self. My 41-year-old self has its own thoughts and ideas too. But for me, the key is not to make my small self understanding overwhelm my inner self understanding, right? It's like the Spanish thing. I could tell by talking to you lots of times about it, Chris, that that's a passion that just needs to happen, right? Why?
Because I love cocaine.
But you know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
yeah, I know,
why?
I know.
Why? Anyway, I just won't believe it ever. I'm a proponent. I'll always be on the other side until I fall flat on my face and I give up.
Yeah.
I won't believe it. Even if I fall flat on my face, I'll be like, I'm rerouted to a better thing. And so far, so good, The book that I read, I haven't read in a while, so probably should read it again. The Science of Getting Rich talks about that. It talks about that exact formula. But what it also does say is everyone who follows this formula, it will happen for. And I believe it because it's happened for me in ways that I sit here right now could not have accomplished just me. Me by myself, I could get the hard work in for law school. I could get the hard work in to get good at litigation. I could get the hard work in to now have a job I hate, and I would have been unhappy. That's what I could accomplish by myself.
Yeah.
But by letting go and listening and following, I've accomplished way more. And I'm just in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just in the beginning. But way more than that. And that's really what I believe. So those people that say it didn't work, like, well, what weren't you doing? What weren't you willing to let go of? Right? Some people believe I've got to be willing to do things. Some of the time it's being willing to let go of things.
Yeah.
Like you guys know me well, so I won't give up specifics, but I've let go of things that were holding me back to degrees that I think some people wouldn't be willing to.
Yeah.
So I'll always have a different opinion about it, and through fact though, I believe, not through just a random opinion.
Yeah, going back to being rich thing, I think it's something that everybody has to experience for themselves and take away their own impression of it, because it's easy to pawn it off. Jim Carrey saying, "Oh, yeah, it's not all what it's cut out to be," but for somebody who's maybe struggling, maybe never had it all their whole lives, who knows? It could be a different experience for them.
I mean, how many celebrities say that compared to say, I've got like the greatest life ever? You know what I mean? Like, not every celebrity's got that same thought process about fame and fortune, right? Some people strive so hard to get to it. They got it. They don't want to let it go.
Yeah, there's very few people who would trade their life of wealth into an impossible situation.
I think I'm of the opinion that wealth is good, and it enables you to experience life at the highest level possible. You know, and again, there are a lot of haters out there about wealth. Like, just because someone has money, they're bad. You guys have probably heard me say a lot of times, though. You compare someone who's wealthy in terms of the required tax donations that they're going to have to give. They've done more good in their life
Right.
in that one donation than most people will do all the years of their life.
That's what drives me crazy about the people that complain about Bill Gates making donations. Oh, well, he could have given more money. Are you fucking kidding me? You know, anybody that's giving millions of dollars away, whether or not because they're a billionaire and they could have given more away, the moral contribution of what they've done with the money that they've had, they could have given none of it away. You know what I mean? But for some people to act like it's not satisfactory, but it's not their life either. You know what I mean?
People are people and have emotions, and they react most people just react out of their emotions. Like when Sean Connery passed, I was around somebody that I actually do respect, and the reaction to it was, see where all that money got him. You know, and it was like, and I mean this, I have a lot of love and respect for the person that said that. But they're a human being and they have emotions. Number one, maybe he knows something about Sean Connery that I don't know. Right?
Right.
But for all I know, Sean Connery was the most loving, giving man this planet has ever seen. And I believe that person didn't know extra than I know.
And he was the greatest James Bond ever.
Exactly.
Come on.
But my point...
How are you going to hate on James Bond?
Right? But my point of it is that's a human reaction to somebody who went after their dreams, succeeded. Like, see where everybody dies.
Yeah.
Everybody dies. No one takes wealth with them.
Right.
But that's the response you're going to get from people. So people hate. I mean, I've learned that over the last few years. I've actually just learned that that's part of it. Anybody who said it, like I remember in the 90s hearing all the rappers like player haters and this and that, haters. Like, what is their fixation on haters? Like, I don't get it. Like, what does it even mean? But imagine coming from nothing to something in one day, or what appears to be one day, the amount of hate that they started getting. That's a real thing. People can't, we're mirrors to each other. You know? Someone else's success, if somebody's vulnerable, is going to be evidence of my failure.
So speaking of, though, to touch on that, like we're talking about manifesting, right? Or even the situation of like haters. Do you think that manifestation can work in that way also? Where somebody could all of a sudden get famous, or, you know, like a rapper, right? Become something above everybody else. And because of that, because they're constantly, because of how they have to rap or what they have to say to live that life, that can manifest itself into a bad situation, right?
I mean, I know for the way I look at it, but again, I have number one, I have no talent.
Yeah.
I have no skill, so it's not an option, right? But I know if I was given a choice of options, I couldn't see where bringing about negativity could put me in vibration with life.
Right.
I say that though, and the God honest truth is listening to people like Tupac or Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's
exactly what I was gonna say.
Or you fill in the blank. That gave me something that I carry with me today.
Right.
Right. So I back off of it a little bit. But yeah, I do believe that. I also believe that people manifest exactly the life they have. I believe it. You know, small thoughts create small things, and most people won't let go of a small thought. Right? If I spend my time hating on someone else's success, that's going to limit my abilities. Right? If I spend my time admiring someone's success and their abilities and what they were able to do, it opens up my abilities. You know, so I believe that. You know, I know for jealousy is something that I have a vague understanding of what it is. A vague understanding. I can understand it more in the concept of a relationship. More so, it helps me understand it the best I can. I've always been the type of like, if my spouse is going to leave me for somebody else, there's nothing I can do about it. So I don't feel it so strongly, you know? But as far as another adult or another human being, I've never felt it like that. You know, it comes out at its worst as envy of like, wow, that's incredible. I can do that too. What did they have to do to get it? And then I either will do those things or not do those things, depending on if I thought it was worth it.
Right.
So, but I think I'm starting to find that jealousy is one of the worst emotions that people feel and get consumed by.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
That's where all the haters come from.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many.
So maybe that's the thing people will need to let go of, but they won't do it, so they stay where they're at. My lesser part of myself that I wish I could get beyond, but I'm not for sure, is when someone irritates me and does something to me. The thing I say to make myself feel better is like, and because of that, they get to stay where they're at, and I keep going where I'm going. Now, it's not the best version of myself, but I strongly believe that.
Could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it could always be worse, right?
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I gotta take a serious piss.
Yeah, man, we did.
Yeah, we did it,
done
man.
Fucking 3 hours. Like, it's 2 hours and 56 minutes basically right now. So, yeah, I was gonna say, man, it's probably
We gotta
about
take a
time
break or
fucking
something. We
take
can
a break.
continue, but I just gotta go take a piss.
Well, fuck, guys. This is a hell of a talk, man.
Yeah, we went deep.
Good to see everybody.
Say something funny, Chris.
I mean, shit, dude. We barely scratched the surface on anything tonight. I feel like we just started bullshitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
It's good shit, though.
yeah, that was good. Well, fuck, guys. Let's definitely take a break. I'm ready to stretch out. I smell like ball sweat over here.
Yeah, I'm sweating
You know what
like
I
a
mean? I'm
motherfucker.
just like-
I don't know why I thought it was going to be hot in here, and I wore a sweatshirt. I thought it'd be bad for him to take it off during the show, though.
Yeah, nah, man. All right, guys. Well, hey, everybody out there, thanks for listening. We back again. Took a little break, but here we are. Good to see everybody. Dre Day. As always, I'm glad whenever you can make it in.
That's good, brother. Thank you.
Be nasty. It's as always good to see you, homeboy.
See.
All right, fellas. Well, tomato cans. We out.
We out.
Peace.